Everybody. Back to having trouble getting started on time. But we are back to House of Light. Now, I've kept the early beta sign up, but I noticed that there were a couple of updates that came into the game. So the I'll just clarify. I got basically a when you are doing like there's a press key basically, and normally what will happen is you'll get an email which has sort of a Steam key, and there'll be sort of instructions. Here's the embargo, so on and so forth. So it's a little less clear to me now in terms of whether or not I am playing the beta or I am playing sort of the version, or as close as we can get to the version that will be um, that will be in released on the 26th. So I've sort of the easiest one for me, right, is that I have not been told to take away the beta sign. Now, clearly, if the game is released or the expansion is released, I will keep that on there. But sort of one of the ways that I've sort of divided this is that normally when I stream Book of Hours or Cultist Simulator back when that was a thing, I would normally. I would normally make sure that I was on the main branch. Hello, Algrins. How you doing? And every once in a while, there will be a game where I do the beta branch, and that's either. Sorry, just a second. Excuse me. So, normally what will happen is, there'll be a request, or there'll be sort of an indication, we're looking for your opinion on such and such, or, people who are interested in ... or it fixed this as bug or whatever. Excuse me. Usually if there's a good, gameplay, or there's a good, if there's a good reason, either from the developer or for the purposes of streaming the game, I'll open up the beta branch. But that tends to be a rare thing, and it's mostly because I'm not a huge influencer. It's not that I think I'm going to make or break a game based on my ability to show it off. Thanks, Algrins. I'm sure there's going to be at least 2 or 3 more sneezes. I've sometimes wondered if I have some kind of a scent allergy. I tried one of the those Airwick or whatever they're called plugins. It's mostly just to get past, I was, when I cook some things, it sort of permeates the apartment. So just so it doesn't sound like, or just so it doesn't smell like I've had the whatever I was cooking for a couple of days, I thought I'd give them a try. But the drawback is that I used to, when I worked at a bank, we were in a scent-free environment. And personally, I've always been a little 50-50 on them, because I don't know, there's just that side of me. I always sort of feel that, if there's a minor thing that you can do to not make things uncomfortable for people, you do it, right? But I've always sort of wanted that to be a voluntary thing that you do as a nice person. And actually it was in that environment where I noticed that there was something that had been brought in, and I actually was sneezing a lot. And I've been largely able to kind of connect it usually with some kind of scent. So again, I've never I don't even know if there's a diagnosis for it or something like that. So I'm in this weird situation where I probably actually benefit from scent-free environments, but I always nah, don't look at this nanny state stuff around me. I'll tough it out. But anyways, I have a feeling that's probably what's going on there. So I'm making my own home as uncomfortable as possible, as a strong, independent man will indicate. It also smells like laundry. So, all right. Anyways, back to the main point. So, the usual deal that I have on this is that I realize that I'm probably not going to make the decision. Well, actually, some of you, maybe I should be a little careful in saying this. Some of you actually do leave some very nice comments and say, hey, I picked up this game because of your streams, and thanks, I'm really enjoying it, and that actually feels really great. So I don't want to say that, you know, there's never a game purchase as a result of the stuff that I do. But I just want to suggest, like, I'm not making anybody's game career out of this stuff. And as a consequence, and I think especially because I think this was for the game Satellite Rain way back when, all of the English streamers who were streaming it were just not interactive with people, very quiet, made the game look quite tedious, and it was one I was excited by. So it was almost this anti-influencing that happened, and it actually took me finding Elcanu, a French streamer who I quite like, and that was the thing that finally made me buy that game. So I'm kind of conscious of the fact that on the margin, you can actually discourage people from from getting a game if they play it, or if you do it in a very if you play it in a certain way. And I think that goes for, beta branches as well, right? So in the case of Old World, it turns out that was a problem with my processor. So, obviously I don't want Old World to be perceived as this very buggy or crashy game when it's my hardware that's at fault. And likewise with Book of Hours, while I think we're probably at a point where there is a version of the game now that's available for influencers, which probably doesn't require the early beta. I want to be clear on that before I do that. So what I've done here is I've decided I'll stay on the beta branch, which does seem to have a different patch number from the one that's on the main branch, which again I imagine is what the influencer types will be streaming. And I just wanted to be clear on this, that, we're probably in a version that is much closer to the experience of the expansion that's going to be coming out on the 26th. But I'm keeping this sign up for a reason, because I am playing a version of this which is still under development. I am still doing the testing, even though I'm probably not a very effective tester. All right, welcome to Hush House. Tips. These are in the loading screens, but from the FAQ department. If you're new to Book of Hours, you may not realize just how far you can zoom in. Playing on Steam Deck, we're not verified yet, but switching from window to full screen will help. Read everything. Everything. Patch 2024 I1 Ilse. If you aspect glowed workstations, they'd stayed glowed until you moused over each one. So presumably this is fixed now. I'm actually happy about this. I kind of noticed it, but I never really reported it, which again gives me an indication in terms of why I'm a bad tester. House of Light fixed an issue where visiting villagers sometimes repeated one-off conversations, and House of Light fixed an issue where a Salon would sometimes be satisfied by the first soul card you fed to it, even though it pretended to want follow-up soul cards. And then I think I've been saying this incorrectly, so Poxend? I think I say Posend, but maybe it's Poxend? I'm not sure. Okay. We are on to the September 9th save. Now, if you could just give me a second here, I need to get my tablet because I did make some notes, so just give me 1 second here. Okay, so rest and refreshment to bring my health back. I'm trying to recall if this was for... I think I was trying to level up a skill. I could be wrong about that, though. Let's take a look at anything in the... So, I do have the option of... I feel like there was a reason I specifically brought back health, and it could be to do the gardening. Oh no, I remember. It was to deal with the time of division. Okay. Now, I need to make some decisions in terms of how I'm using my shell-crossed whist. This is actually something that I can make quite a bit of use of. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make enough Pribiot to... Oswin Meow, lovely to see you. We are, there's a patch, so we're still in House of Light. I'm going to be making some more inks. As always, I know not only do I think you're you have the capabilities, but I also think your temperament is such to sort these things out for yourself. I know you've said as much in some for some context, but I know you're also feeling a little mixed in terms of your stream. So I'd actually really like to see you stream this at some point. Just so I can, I don't know, give that reassurance or confirm your biggest suspicions. But if you have any more questions, I actually really liked interacting with you about this game. Not to mention, it was actually a lot of fun to hang out in Pro's channel yesterday. I hope you don't have too much of a hangover from your exertions. But yes, if you do have any questions about whether it's the new expansion or if it's about the game itself, I'm very happy to answer those because I actually found it quite helpful to just sort of remind myself about a few things. So, it is autumn when the leaves rustle. The silent landlady has served me apple pie with steamed cream in the window nook. So really just going to get a little extra money out of that. I don't have too much to do with the winter. And again, I think the main plan here was I worked out a few people to bring in for the salon, but I actually want to get everything ready. So I want to do the invitations. I want to, I want to make all of the dishes, and just in general, I'd like to make sure that I have as many required pieces as I can get before healing the whist. Yeah, no worries. Enjoy your Overwatch game. A full belly makes a helpful friend. The Speastie is now inclined to cooperate. I should have fixed the book here. Okay, so 2 wombs, 1 heart is the next most likely for us to fix. Herbs and infusions. Ah, yes. So, same story, we just need to do it at Nona's desk. Oh, 7, right. So I just need the mortar and pestle. Treat Keeper Skin corruption. Keeper Skin is persistent, but it has its weaknesses. Keeper Skin. The book is blotched with Keeper Skin, a luminous fungus that grows in the wood we see in sleep and enters the world when a dreamer inhales its spores. So another thing I'd like to do, before too long is I'd like to try and get more Ava's locks to make another Solomon's preparation. Better now. could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There is no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. I also think I'm probably going to have to man up and start deciding what branches on the Tree of Wisdoms I want to start going further down. I've long wanted to try and work out a specific set of like skills to commit, just so I can make sure that everything's committed. But at this point, I think it's better for me just to take advantage of what's available. Okay. Dream on a memory. Now that night has fallen, I can rest and perhaps dream on the day's doings. There's a big theorized that Keeper Skin was a debased carapace kind, or perhaps it's young, but she never could convince it to speak. The Keeper Skin contamination has been removed. So more phosphorescent scrapings. Running out of space for all of it. And then the Time of Division, that is a book that we can read. It's just a difficult one, so this is still a 14 shelf. I don't think there's any 14 heart texts. Yeah, so Nin's Cages is the closest. Some authorities claim it's difficult to lose a pot of Peribiate ink, but they haven't visited Hush House. Or sorry, they haven't lived at Hush House. So technically I need just 2 more of these. I may make more, we'll see, but... And no worries at all, Oswin. It was mostly just kind of an extended welcome anyway, but I just wanted to mention that I was both grateful for your questions, but also wanted to encourage you that if you had any based on my gameplay, again, I've gone a bit of a distance inside of Hush House, but if there was something that caught your attention or anything that you had questions about, I realize, of course, that you do tend to like figuring things out on your own, but I just wanted to say that was a little helpful for me. So if there is something that comes up, don't hesitate to ask. I think we're probably roughly on the same page in terms of identifying what's helpful to share without sort of telling you how to play, which is roughly my intention here. All right, so we're going to start off with a trip to Crowcross Sands. This is partly because Ava's locks would still be nice to get, and then we also have... I'm also looking to get apples from the walk on the moor. As far as winter goes, I do have other options in terms of going... Well, actually, no, not without the... not without the... Solomon's Preparation. So I do have the option if I use this blue crown, because we're not that far away from winter. I actually don't think that's a bad idea. So let's make another Solomon's Preparation. Solomon's Preparation ultimately gets me more... And the other thing too is I don't actually need to use the blue crown. I can use any old flower. Is there one I happen to have a surplus of? I think I'm actually going to wait on Ava's locks, now that I think of it. Sorry to be so indecisive, but we will bring in Mr. Kill. So, Mrs. Kill, the midwife, is tall and gloomy. Mr. Kill, the undertaker, is slight and wry. For 10 years, she has drawn villagers into the world, and he has shaped cradles for their departure. But she can also whittle, and he can also paint. Mr. Kill always enjoys a chance to catch up with me. If you don't choose a topic, Mr. Kill will offer help as a friend. And perhaps against my better judgment, but I think I'm actually going to interact with the chickens as well. So this one seems to be an obvious choice for Arab, so... Time with the beastie, offer this beast my company. Who knows, perhaps it will offer something in return. And then I should get a copy. I should be reading, well, sorry, I should be making some money because I can. Help with letters. I can offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There's no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows knows their letters. Here's a question. What is the point of crafting? How does it fit into the game? So this is a bit of a tricky one because it touches on a number of different factors inside of the game. There's no one specific answer to the crafting question. So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to show you some of the craftables that can be useful to you. And then I will show you a couple of the skills that I have and just give some examples chosen not necessarily because they're ones that I want you to focus on, but ones that I think are useful in terms of showing the diversity of, of the stuff that you can build. So an example here would be the Mommets. So we've got the pale Mommet, a gently twitching little cloth doll with melancholy button eyes and a frill of colored ribbons. So this is one where it's a tool. So in addition to the fact that you can use it at desks, so for instance, you could use the pale Mommet, well, probably wouldn't be good to use it at the pale desk, probably Ava's desk would be more useful. So you can use it here. And it'll give you extra values for some of its aspects. So in this case, 2 moth, 2 heart, and 4 grail. Now, obviously 4 grail, yeah, it's super helpful. But of course, there's other things that you can use tools for. And in the case of the like the pale Mommet, 4 grail is something that you could also use with Mrs. Kill, for instance, to bring her up. Now, the thing to remember about this particular kind of device, this particular tool, is it's actually a device, so a machine that will only operate once. If it's an infernal device, that means it'll explode, so be careful. So that's one example of something that you can craft that has a specific purpose. And then there's also things like, so woven, take this to a workbench to render it to rags. That's something that if you want, you can... if you need fabric for one reason or another, you can do that. I maybe wouldn't recommend that with the pale Mommet, but it's up, it's your playthrough. You can do what you want. I do actually like that they've included this note here, which says inert, a device, but one that can be activated by casual handling. This can survive consider without being used up, although it'll still be used up in crafting. All right. Now, this one's kind of an interesting one. So you've got the Swaddled Thunder. So 6 heart, 4 sky. This one is a little funny because as far as its aspects go, it's fabric and fiber. So you can put it in the loom. And I think now you can use it with Mrs. Kill if you want to give her a lot of heart. That's actually not the only use for it. In this one, you can actually consider the Swaddled Thunder. And we talked about this last time. This is actually an item that can give you a storm. And the reason why I'm saying that, I don't really feel that this is one that you particularly need to, figure out, because there is sometimes that worry that when you consider certain items, they get consumed. The game does tell you that. But in this case here, the Swaddled Thunder, in addition to being a powerful piece of fabric, it's actually very useful in the sense where it can generate a memory which gives you certain levels of heart and sky, which at certain points of the game are quite useful to get. So, these are two rather different items, right? So this is one that I would give to Mrs. Kill, for instance, whereas this one I can give to Mrs. Kill, but maybe that's not the most interesting or useful use for it. But in general, I would say that there's kind of a set of, let's say, 2 or 3 different things that you're going to use the items for, or the things that you craft for. One set will be, you can use them to enhance visitors or assistants. So in that sense, you can talk to, I'll make a drink. So for instance, I talked about making something called Solomon's Preparation. Solomon's Preparation has 4 winter. And so in this case here, if I take Quenchings and Quellings, for example, add a whist. So I can make Eigengrau. Eigengrau if Gradon oil were drinkable. So if I need to augment one of my followers with Winter or Moon, I'll use the Eigengrau for that. Also, once the cooking gets added inside of House of Light, I'm of course speaking to people who are not yet using House of Light, it's intoxicating, which means that you can marinate a roast beef with it, or pickle pilchards. So Eigengrau is actually quite helpful. Regensburg Bomb is a little bit different. So Regensburg Bomb is an item which you, on its own, isn't necessarily something that you would use with a follower, right? So you get heart, you get nectar, and it's a liquid, but this is probably more of an intermediate kind of item. And those can be useful on their own. So you'll notice that Gideon's Soaks requires liquid and heart. So in this case, Regensburg Bomb gives you 2 heart and a liquid, so then you can combine that with a core, you're up to 4 heart, and you still have a skill, a memory, and a substance in this case to be able to craft that. So you can think of some of them as intermediate ingredients, although again, that still invites the question, okay, but what is the intermediate item? Like, why do I care about crafting in this case? So then the other one on quenchings and quellings that's probably the most helpful is the one that I mentioned here, the Solomon's Preparation. You can use that to make something that, again, you'll be able to make a stronger Mr. Kill with. So for Winter, and he's able to open up a number of other areas. But the other set of things that are kind of interesting for the crafting are things that enable capabilities for you. So in my case here, I'm actually crafting Peribiate, an ink. So again, this on its own is useful as an ink. It's a liquid. It has Winter, Scale, Lantern, and Heart. These are all very helpful aspects for me to use. I can actually use inks at desks. So for instance, if I go to Natan's desk, I can add the Peribiate, and now I get 2 of Heart, Lantern, or Scale, or 1 Winter. And I can use that to improve my chances of reading a book. So that's useful on its own. I'll also mention, I'm not going to go into too much detail on it, but there are certain special inks in this game which will actually allow you to do things which are more related to the end game. These are related to the specific purpose of the librarian, and you can find those. You can find out more about that in either the secret papers inside the game, or by reading some of the books. And I'm happy to expand on that if you want, but that's definitely a late game thing. So I just wanted to sort of gesture towards it. So all in all, it sort of depends on the context of what you're trying to do, but crafting in general will either enhance one of your guests, it will enhance your own capabilities, and then of course with House of Light and the cooking, there's that third category where you can make food, and the food will eventually give you some lessons from the guests. All right, let's get... let's get my Earth sign back. And I still have some cooking that I want to do, but... All right, Hailstorm. 3 edge, 3 sky. Now, under normal circumstances, I would kind of want to use this, but I don't really have any books that will get me skills that I want. So I'm probably just going to set this one aside. And again, it pains me to do so, but I have other priorities right now, namely preparing the items for the salon, and then well, sorry, that was the inks and the food, and healing the whist. My screen got zoomed out or smaller somehow. Let me just take a quick look on the channel. Unless I'm crazy. Let's take a look. I'm seeing it full screen on mine. Is there somebody else who's watching who might be able to offer some insight on this? So I'm as zoomed in as I can. So the basically the servants' hall should be filling up my screen right now. When I take a look at the Twitch stream, it seems to be okay, and I'm mirroring my Twitch stream. So it may be something that you want to reset the browser for, Oswin, but I'm not quite sure. I don't know if that's something on my end that I can help with. Again, if anybody else is experiencing a bit of oddness with the visual, please let me know, because I'm not able to detect that on my end. No. I mean, I want it to be as clear as I can for other people. I actually like it when people. I mean, obviously there are some people who just assume that, there's nothing ever wrong on their side, and then you spend a bunch of time debugging for them, and but you're not one of those people. So, but then again, if I, sort of jerk the mouse, or if I bump the zoom out, that may translate it as well. Yeah, no, it's all good. I'd rather that. I mean, it's like me having my break sign up during the stream, right? It's one of these things that it happens, it's embarrassing, but I don't fix it unless somebody kindly points it out. So I should be making slightly better use of the season. So let's take the core. Not herbs and infusions, because I'm going to want to use that to get rid of the keeper skin. I think I have enough Lenten Rose. I think I'm really looking for the Honey Scar Jasmine here. No, I'm going to stick with the Honey Scar. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. It is autumn when the leaves rustle. The silent landlady has served me apple pie with steamed cream in the window nook. Okay, so we've finished our chat with the chicken. And now it suggests a meal would be welcome. Okay, I'm running out of space for the eggs. We'll have a chat with Tuppence just to get... I'm going to be making some replacement meringues, so the more I can get, the happier I'll be. Offer this beast my company. Who knows? Perhaps it will offer something in return. Hey, Malmal357. Yes, well, I've been pretty inconsistent with my starts lately, so I must apologize for that. But welcome. I'm going to guess that you're from the YouTube channel. I normally try to start with a window between 7 to 8, but I started a job at the end of January, and I love it. It's been great. It's quite demanding in some cases, but in a good sense. But the one drawback is that I have a longer commute, and sometimes I will want to make sure that I finish some work before I head home. And this just translates into, between transit and all the other factors, it does make it a little harder to get home on time, to start the stream on time. So it's something I'm a little conscious of, and it's something that I want to work on. But it's a particularly busy time, and so that basically what that means is I have a hard... I've got a lot more flexibility in terms of my start time than I would normally like. But I am glad you were able to stop by. Dirashu Quercum. In English, the title translates roughly as The Account of the Oaks, but this is Nathaniel Darcy Evers' fascinating, if haphazard, survey of the occult properties of every tree that he can find, not just oaks. In Persia, Taxis Picata, the yew is called Sorkdar, which is the red tree. There they had long understood the Grail root. In later times, the great king of Pontus had beehives set in the branches of the oldest of the female trees. The berries of the Pontine yew open the door to death, but the honey of their great flowers opens a different door entirely. This was not the great king's Mithridate, but one who has suckled at the great yew fears poison no longer. Perhaps they should. Nathaniel is here distracted, however, by the toxic properties of certain inks. He does mention more usefully that the minor ink of power yew-gall can be brewed through the rites of the roots with the assistant of the aspect nectar. So, and there's an example, right, in terms of how the game will show you. It's like one of the things that I think is sometimes disappointing is when I really can't crack a puzzle and I just sort of brute force all the different combinations, but definitely from Cultist Simulator, I learned, read the books carefully, get the hints, get the suggestions, and you start sort of learning a little bit more in terms of what the I don't know if right's the correct term, but you learn a little bit in terms of what types of things you should be trying. All right, this should be the last cursed book that we fix. Where'd you go? So treat the Keeper Skin corruption. Keeper Skin is persistent, but it has its weaknesses. So this is empty, 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 and then the... Oh no, Gospel of Zacchaeus. So I still need to find out how to deal with the Senthic Taint. We'll figure it out. I think that might be enough for my invitations. Yeah, let's move on to gonna reopen my Excel file just to see what recipes I've been working on. So the ones that I've listed as false in the house: cold pheasant with grape salad, the pale stuffed marrow, cake batter, well, I don't know if I really want to count those. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to sort essentially everything that's got kind of a false beside it. So, for instance, cold pheasant with grape salad. Actually, I think I forgot to hang on to some grapes. Yeah, I already fed them to the chickens. And I can harvest in spring and summer, but not autumn. Okay, so I'm gonna go without the cold pheasant. We can move on to well, pale stuffed marrow is not that hard to make, so that's just a knife and a pale marrow, and we certainly have plenty of those. Bake a pale stuffed marrow, a dish with heart, nectar, and winter. What else do I want to do with my elements of the soul? So the Wisdom and the Foss theoretically have some sort of financial value. The health is something... The health is something to do gardening with, so I'll get another honey scar jasmine out of that. Okay, so the Fet and the health are spoken for, the Tryst. So it's really the Wisdom and the Foss that I'm trying to work on here. So I suppose one question would be, and I'm actually going to take a minute to write this out. I did, for the YouTube series, I did have a list of persistent memories, and I should probably just write that down somewhere else. In fact, I wonder if this fancy little device that I have will just copy and paste all this for me. Sorry, I realize none of you can see what I'm working on. But yeah, so the little list of persistent memories that I have here: Old Wound, Enduring Reflection, Ascendant Harmony, Hive's Lament, Curious Hunch, Wormwood Dream, Horizon Sight, Didumos, Invisible Audacity, Wind in Waiting, Forbidden Epic, Earthquake Name, Earth Sign, and Occult Scrap. So of these, we've got the Old Wound, Curious Hunch, Occult Scrap, Earth Sign, or we'll have the Earth Sign. And realistically, I think this is actually as far as we can get in terms of, I mean, maybe an Enduring Reflection too, but yeah, we're still pretty low in terms of some of my Elements of the Soul, so I don't know if I should be wasting the time, or, well, spending the time, let's say, working on those. So let's think about other things I can try and do with the Whist and the Fost. Well, one obvious answer here would be I will wind up making the Blue Crown. Or so, not the Blue Crown, the Solomon's Preparation. Now, with that in mind, perhaps... Oh, actually, there's another thing I can do. I think if I take the Fost, the Edict's Inviolable... There we go. Locate a lost treasure of the house. Sleep with the stone as a pillow. I don't know why, but I know a little of what the Calyptra has decreed and what they have permitted. I think the other one is Edict's Liminal. Oh, but I can't use that in that bed. All right. This is purely me taking knowledge from the previous run to get that. When we run into the book, I'll explain, but right now I'm just coming up with ways to use my Elements of the Soul. Unexpected finds in the folds of earth and sky. So rose hips are nice. They actually serve as their own, kind of their own dish. So they do count as a first course. That's not gonna work. I'm thinking maybe I find a new place for the book. This is one that I wrote. Where would I put my own manuscripts? I think I've used most of the shelf space. I don't think I've ever had them. We'll put them in the Solomon's quarters for now. I'll find a better place for them, but obviously I'm turning half of Hush House into a storage like a storage locker. So let's go. I don't know, Hill and Hollow. Gather in Autumn. And then sea-strewn, salt-snared stuff. Now this is useful in, like, it's more... The driftwood fragment I tend to think is a little more appropriate for making the Pyrus Auricle Sinus without waiting for Numa. And it's mostly just because, like, using it with Mr. Kill, there's just not a lot of situations where I would need Moon or Nectar from him. Although, again, you never know what circumstances will come up. It's also a little hard to store. So. Alright, so let's go find some more goodies. What is the sea seeded today? And still need to think about what I need to do with my whist. I know I was going through the various items of the house, and I've sort of fallen off of the habit there. You know, one thing I can do, I can actually just use this whist in crafting. Sorry, just 1 second here. I need to change the title. And now it suggests a meal would be welcome. All right, better now. So we're just going to keep rotating this particular whist to earn some money. And Thirza Blake theorized that Keeper Skin was a debased carapace kind, or perhaps it's young, but, excuse me, she could never convince it to speak. So second to last of the cursed books, but definitely progress. And 2 Ooms, 1 Heart will go in the... Uh-oh. Alright, well. This is what I get for hoarding books. Yeah, so what I think I'm going to do here, taking a look at the various ingredients that I can make. Sea pie is the next one, and that is dough and beef. So here we'll use the whist. I should have at least 1 more beef left over. And I know I have plenty of dough. Dish with forge. So the rest of this is just, you know, using the health and the tryst to try and get ingredients. How lovely the texts found on such a solemn isle are. I've always been fascinated in awe of such eloquence in writing. I mean, this is... I don't know if you played Cultist Simulator or not, but this is definitely a great strength of Weather Factories. If you are interested in sort of the game design side of things, there are actually a couple of GDC talks that the writer Alexis Kennedy has done. And I find them useful. I think, you know, I do feel in some cases that they're deserving of more credit than just the good writing. I mean, that's not to knock it. Obviously, this is one of the great strengths of Weather Factory's games. But I think one of the things that's also worth noting is that, like, they've got a pretty good track record, not a perfect track record. In fact, one of the talks almost talks a little bit more about some of the failures. But I think they've shown a real skill at making very original games, and ones that sort of you didn't know that you wanted to play or had to play until you finally get your hands on them. And I think one of the reasons why I like highlighting that is that I think it's a really good example. You know, in the end, this is this is a studio of 2 people, and of course they're using contractors, but still, it's a 2-person core studio. They have to make games that are very tight in scope, and yet they've been, you know, clearly their talent lies in a lot of their writing, right? Whether this is creating interesting worlds or specifically the descriptions of those things in that world. And if you look at the games that they make, right, even from Cultist Simulator to House of Light. Well, House of Light is the expansion, but when you go from Cultist Simulator to Book of Hours, you do see a progression, right? You see them doing new things and gaining new skills. But it's always been against this backdrop of, you know, very good writing, interesting narratives, and, you know, the sort of stuff that basically leaves people saying, you know, oh, I wish I wrote that. I definitely have listened to Skeleton Songs. I'm definitely a fan of it. I obviously wish that there were more, but it's amazing that they're able to put out as much as as they already do. And he said it's part of why you started reading classical literature. You just started up Moby Dick recently. Very similar vibe. I feel I adore Melville. I definitely really like Moby Dick. And it's hard for me. I think every time I read it, I kind of get the view that like Melville sat down and like read Paradise Lost like no human has ever read it before, and then just made this really amazing book out of it. But I definitely tend to lean more on the classical side. I've been reacquainting myself with Jonathan Swift, who is an enduring love of mine. So I definitely have a preference for that. I mean, I'm the kind of nerd who, after doing English classes, I went out and bought the remaining volumes of the Norton Anthology of English literature that I didn't own because I didn't have classes for them, and I don't think that was a bad choice at all. 99 winks, and I wake with a book cradled in my arms. Edicts inviolable, the precepts of occlusion and dissolution. Their jealous enforcement is the nature of Calyptra. Inscribed stone, a stone tablet with roads of badly worn scratches that once probably were writing. And the Three and the Three, the St. Chiavi manuscript. This book describes the operations of the chancel and the Calyptra, two triads of hours with subtle, far-reaching powers and responsibilities. Of all the extant versions, this one has best survived the interventions of the Calyptra. So I should be able to read the Serpent Root if I'm so inclined. The only thing is it does give me rights of the roots, which I'm not quite sure I know what I want to do with yet. Alright, here's the pale stuffed marrow. This was a marrow redolent of sorrow. Now it's a dish to comfort the damned. Let's find a table to put this at. No room there. And I've already used the... Nope. This'll do. Okay. We're working on the sea pie. But we can make a stargazy pie. Make stargazy pie, a dish with forage, heart, moon, nectar, rose, scale, and winter. And I should have been talking with Mr. Kill. Now, I don't have many expectations out of the conversation with Mr. Kill. It's more just I want to... Oh, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to get my earth sign. I think I'll wait on that. I'd prefer, if I can, to use the Tryst for more goodies. With Keep Level Winter, Solomon's preparations are a precursor to the Great Ink Nillikant. So that's another answer to your question, Oswin. Actually, one thing I should have mentioned about the Skeleton Songs podcast. I have not yet read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, but their description of that, I love the way that they describe literature in that, but that almost certainly is going to get me reading that book. At the very least, it's knocking that up higher on my to-read list. I should have said that before. I don't know if any of you have a favorite episode, but... Anyways, yeah, so to answer one of your previous questions here, the other thing that's kind of nice about the crafting is that when you craft certain items, it will give you a little bit of a hint in terms of the next thing that you can craft. Not always, but I have found that useful over time. All right, we're going to get another Honey Scar Jasmine. And I don't think I'm going to be able to use the Tryst twice, so I probably should... I'm thinking maybe I should use the Tryst to get the Earth sign again. Oh! That's good news. Ava's Locks. Although, again, I'm out of places to put it. That one we can put in the overflow slot. Unexpected finds in the folds of earth and sky. Now this is rather nice because we can make an essential periost out of that if we have to. Although I'm trying to find a place to put it. And yeah, just taking a look at the time, I think it's probably better for me to... Yeah, so I can't make the... actually... If I put... There you go. Muddle and mix a wintry preparation. Yes, that's another interesting thing. I mean, so this is a really interesting take. I mean, to a certain extent, right? This is just another example of a really smart business decision on the part of an interesting indie creator. You know, they're not a big publisher, right? So, you know, Electronic Arts, it makes sense for them to jealously guard their IP because, you know, if you have Mass Effect, that is just a whole, like, a whole studio effectively is supported through what can be generated off of that. And it is important for them to not dilute that. But I also understand, like, you know, I've done IP and econ, so like I sort of understand the, you know, the love-hate and frequently hate relationship with intellectual property protections. Now, the thing is that I suspect for Weather Factory, they have more good ideas than they're ever going to be able to realize for... I'm just temporarily going to put the pie on this shelf. I want to see if I can reorganize things. Oh, that's not going to do it. So what's nice here is that, you know, they've got some very reasonable limits in it, right? Like, obviously, if you make a, you know, in fact, I think probably the best description that they have of it is that, you know, if your creation is creating problems for us being able to, you know, to realize, you know, our revenues from it, then we're going to stop it, is kind of where it goes. You know, if it's a very large project, it's one where you'll have a conversation with them and work out terms. But for the idea of just being able to sort of run through the, you know, run through the secret histories and to add something to it, you know, I think this is a really nice thing that they've done, which makes a lot of sense because it just deepens that level of engagement. And as you say here, right, a profound respect that they have for their own consumers. And, you know, I like that. I think that's a good example of, you know, kind of the right way of navigating the intellectual property system that we have, which is that, you know, their works are protected. You know, they are able to continue to produce these types of games, and that, you know, it's realistic to think that they will, you know, as long as there's a market for them, as long as there's an appetite for these kinds of games, that they'll be able to get the rewards of creating these things. But they are also able to, you know, use the fact that they are the size that they are and the fact that they have a very devoted community. And they're able to find that balance that allows them to do something that would be unheard of from larger developers. And the reason why I highlight that is because, again, this is stuff that is in a It's in a GDC talk, right? I think the example, not that specific plan, but I think it's in line with that kind of thinking, where Alexis Kennedy, one of the co-founders of this studio, gives the analogy of like Newt and the APC in the movie Aliens. And that, the APC is this, large and unstoppable vehicle, and it has a set of things that it's very good at. And Newt's special ability is to hide in vents. But in terms of survivability in that film, Newt lasts considerably longer than the APC because she happens to have a skill set that is much more conducive to survival. And it's something that I wish it was a lesson that you would see apply more from some independent creators, simply because, I guess the other example you could think of would be the press release, we're very excited to announce ... And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But it's kind of a missed opportunity to communicate some personality. To let let people know what you're about and why you're unique and original, and obviously trying to get your name out there, trying to show what you're about. It's a hard thing to do, and so it's one of those things that you can see, independent creators would want to guard those opportunities and use them wisely. So. Again, the games are the main thing, right? If the games weren't interesting, then all of this other talk would be kind of irrelevant. But I definitely think it's an example of a micro studio that isn't just making interesting games, but they're definitely doing something that I feel is interesting in terms of navigating a very tough environment for game developers. I'm terrified, by the way, that one of these I'm going to wind up trying to ban one of these bots and I'll accidentally ban a viewer. All right, let's make a meringue. I think I need sugar for that. Nope. Oh, wait, no, a bowl. With an egg, a bowl, I don't care. You could make a meringue, an ingredient for a higher purpose. So we have I've got the invitations ready to go. I'm going to need to decide what I want to make for the... Sorry, still need to decide what I want to serve for the salon. But right now, I'd just like to have kind of one of everything, and then we can move to the next step. I'll also just find it a little bit easier if we can pass over autumn, and when I get to leveling up my various skills, it's a little easier for me to just decide, okay, these are the, this is the subset of skills that I want to focus on, and I don't need to worry about Numa or anything like that. Dead men don't tell no bloody tales. Well, who'd listen? Oh, Oswald Meow, I should mention, I have a copy of Fowler's Modern English Usage. I rather regret I didn't actually bring it home with me, but it has an entry specifically on often, and it has it actually is one of the few cases where they keep Fowler's original quote. But I'm trying to remember exactly. Let me see if I can find. I'm wondering if I can find an old copy of Fowler's for the original line. I think I've mentioned before, the Um, oh dear. Hmm. That's a shame. So I've been kind of joking that my job title should be writer at this point, um, because now I keep I have my so I have the Oxford Canadian English Dictionary, which is not the same as not the same as the proper Oxford English Dictionary, but they only gave me half of that one. I have a thesaurus. Again, actually it wasn't. I don't think it was the Canadian thesaurus, or maybe it was. I should double check which one I have. That one I do actually have a proper. The Canadian. No, actually they are. So the Oxford English, the specific Oxford English Dictionary I'm thinking of, the only print version of it is like 12 volumes and I think 3 extensions. The third edition I don't think is intended to be published, but they're anticipating, I think it might be done in like 2030 something. But you can get online access to that one. The shorter Oxford English Dictionary is a reduced version of the Oxford English Dictionary, which will use, I think it's all of the English words since the 1600s, except for words that appear in Milton, Shakespeare, Spenser, and the King James Bible. So that's the one that I have half of. I have the big, like, huge thesaurus. Unfortunately, I'm using that as a weight for something right now, which I feel a little bad about, but yeah, the desk, obviously I'm not going to keep those on my desk at work. And then the Canadian one, I think is probably borrows from the Oxford English Dictionary, but I believe it is a distinct product from the time when Oxford actually had its own little Canadian office. I believe that has since closed. But it's a different product with a lot of overlap. Is maybe the best way for me to put it. But yeah, anyways, at work I've got now my dictionary, my thesaurus, and a modern style guide. So I went for Fowler's on that one. Now you'd think with that many writer's tools I would maybe be a better writer, but I'm still working on that. Actually, on that note, if there are any fans of the blog still around, I have been working on stuff for that as well. Nothing finished, but it is not lost on me that it has been a long time since I've updated that, and it's not for lack of trying. All right, let's make a pear meringue. Looks like we still have 2 undiscovered recipes. Oh, that's right. I need to try and make the meringue with mushrooms. All right. We're actually making pretty good time in terms of the various ingredients. We're also going to be in a position to get Mr. Kill opening another room. Okay, that's not going to work. see, strewn salt snared stuff. Now I really don't need this much sand, but I am gonna just keep adding it. Not that hard to get rid of if I need to. Now, if you'll excuse me, I actually need to go to the bathroom, and I think I'm just going to take the chance to refill my tea, and it's actually me taking a break at the time I normally intend to take a break. So, I'm going to, do the whole break thing. When we get back, I think at the very least I'll try opening up another room or two, the winter ones at least. And then after that, I don't know, I'm going to need to think it through, but I think probably our current strategy of preparing for a salon by having one of every food item, and that just happens to except for the cold pheasant. I'm gonna need to remember to get the grapes, but after that, I think probably I'm going to want to think seriously about the skills, just so I can get some more elements of the soul to use for the salon. And then we'll actually do it, because at that point I'll also have a clear idea in terms of where I want to put certain skills, certain lessons, and at that point that'll probably be the point where I can reinforce all my work in terms of getting through the house and the extra room. So that seems like a decent enough game plan to, at least for the rest of today, and then we'll be set up for Friday if it comes down to that. But before I think about any of that stuff, I'm gonna take care of myself. So I'll see you all in a few minutes if you've been here since the start, or maybe even if you just stopped by recently. That'd be a good time to get up, have a stretch, glass of water, a cup of tea, whatever you're looking for, and we will be back hopefully shortly. Okay. Thank you all for your patience. I know that was a little earlier than expected, and I'm delighted to see stats. um, Again, I said my job title is probably better listed as writer now, but I previously was an economist, so I'm not very good at stats, but I have a healthy respect for them. There's actually, on the note of English, I do think that there's one thing that's kind of funny. We, and I'm speaking in North America, will very frequently say stats, so statistics, and yet we will also very frequently say math, even though the subject is mathematics. And most commonly, you will, if you think of the UK, you'll frequently hear people refer to it as maths. And that usually sounds unusual to us. When I say us, of course, I'm making an assumption here about my audience. But the thing is that even though I say math, I actually think maths is more sensible. And the other thing that's very fun about Canada is that in a lot of newspaper coverage and just casual conversation, you will frequently hear people refer to our National Statistical Agency as StatsCan. Which again makes sense, right? Statistics Canada. And yet the actual name of the agency is StatCan, which would be consistent with the way that North Americans say math. But what's funny here is that people will actually correct. If you look at this on Twitter, you will actually see people correct the statistical agency on their name, despite the fact that they are the ones who technically are saying it correctly. Now, I think most people probably think that, it should be changed. But I do think it's actually kind of amusing in this case where, it's so ingrained for people. And oddly enough, I am sympathetic to StatCan's position because it's at least consistent with the way that we say math. But math and stat just sounds weird. And to me, I think probably the correct answer is to just switch to maths and stats. But I'm never going to win that one. All right, the baked pear meringue. Harvey Haddington, during his convalescence at the house, became obsessed with meringuing techniques. He was known to sneak down to the kitchens and interfere with the cooks in pursuit of his ideal. All right, let me just bring back my spreadsheet to see where we're at. So baked pear meringue is there. Organized is definitely one way for it. I have just too much stuff. But I'm glad you like it. All right. After the pear meringue, we can make the floating island, but that will require another meringue. So we'll take the egg. We will take the sugar. Of course, this is nice because we'll get space for more ingredients. Make a meringue, an ingredient for a higher purpose. Midnight meringues is how one gets past shell-crossed. My thoughts are tangled and unfamiliar to me. Something of those who came before. The carapace cross has always lingered in humankind. It's risen now in me. Memories fade, assistance departs, but the soul is refreshed. So I think today we can use Mr. Kill to unlock some rooms for us. So Mr. Kill always enjoys a chance to catch up with me. If you don't choose a topic, Mr. Kill will offer help as a friend. I'm also gonna keep ransacking Crowcross Sands and the moor. And what else? The Earth sign. Hard unceasing. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. So I don't think I have any need for the health again. In this case, we'll grab everything we can from the gardens. In this case, I think I'll also grab some more vegetables because I know we are getting close to winter. I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. I think why we dropped the S on maths is that our dialects don't often permit an unvoiced dental fractive. The TH in 3 followed immediately by an unvoiced evolar frictive S. And rather, I'm learning, so between the often chat and now this, I am learning many, many new terms. And rather move to voice both. Paths is often said as paths, at least in my region. I assume that maths didn't sound representative enough, so we dropped the S altogether. It's interesting. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I kind of prefer the precision. Like, I see what you're saying. I still think I kind of prefer the precision of it. Although I'm still trying to think, is it really all that different when we say stats? Like maths and stats. I don't know. I'm trying to think why they're so different. Why we would only do it for one and not the other. I think I'm just lacking imagination at this point. I definitely need to force myself to do it, but I think that's probably more just because of patterns rather than, like, for names in this game. So for the longest time I used to say Teresa Gallagher, not realizing it's Galmier. And I've said Huckabald of Posend where it's probably Huckabald of Poxend. Or maybe it's Posend, I don't know. But like it's one of these ones where some of them I need to make an effort to undo the, or Elegablis I mispronounced for such a long time as well. And sometimes that takes an effort on my part to unlearn the way that I said it. Although again, that may be a statement on my slowness rather than the relative difficulty of certain things. We're making a floating island. Let me just get that out of the list. So we have an orange jumble crusty bread, roast potatoes, apple pie, and honey-haunted amber pumpkin pie. Speaking of, I should probably start yanking out some pumpkins out of these. Let's start that now, actually. So, identify as a pumpkin. This is a pumpkin. Marvelous. Mash it, eat it, hide forbidden documents in it. I think we can do the same with the Faust. Nope, don't eat it. So it is possible that I need to do something to the pumpkin to turn it into the amber. Um, there's no small mallet to work with it. At work, there's a few coworkers who have strong opinions about very strong opinions about pumpkin spice, and I believe both of them may have a military background, and so I get to hear the relative merits of certain certain branches of my nation's armed forces expressed through the medium of pumpkin spice. One is for, one is strongly against. I should actually work out here. So I've got 4 for the coffin maker's assistance. I think I worked it out that if I use the Wormwood Dream and the Solomon's Preparation, that's probably the best way. You personally view the greatest season as when the barren branches of trees are encrusted in ice or snow. Such beauty, but the cold. Yeah, it gets very, very cold where I live. So there was a couple of points where it got so cold so fast. It was like the entire city had been covered in glass, and that looked truly beautiful, but bitterly cold. Like, I had to force myself to go out to experience that. So yeah, I can't deny the beauty, but man, that is just too much for me to enjoy. Salfea, lovely to see you again as always. I feel like I should have done this before I went on my break, but I'll give a quick shout out to Oswin Meow, who is in here first. I will mention that for those of you that like Book of Hours, Oswin Meow has been trying Book of Hours on her channel. Now, not the only game that's played there, and I think at the moment we've sort of been trying to find out whether or not that's something to continue on with, but I will definitely say my view is that if you want to see more of a game on Twitch, usually you should show support to it and the streamers who do. So to me, that's one big reason to follow and watch Oswin's stuff. But even if Book of Hours winds up being something that's sort of kept more as a personal interest, I will definitely say that I've really enjoyed watching the channel. I think everything from Disco Elysium to Helldivers 2 has been a real delight, and I encourage you. I was a little disappointed that I didn't get home in time to watch her play yesterday, but someone who's a lot of fun to have inside of chat, and somebody who is definitely somebody whose channel I enjoy hanging out with. And on top of that, we have got Salfea. Now, I don't know if we're going to convince Salfea to stream Book of Hours, but definitely another streamer who I have quite a bit of respect and admiration for. The first person who got me to play Words on Stream, but on top of that, also a moderator for Dendrian, somebody who I'd found originally through Against the Storm, but also somebody who I've seen play my time in Sandrock, probably about 1,000 hours worth. And then his most recent, well, maybe not most recently, but I most recently saw them play Sunhaven. So an Australian broadcaster, somebody who streams a bit later than I do. But I actually feel that that's a bit of a virtue, because I do feel bad when I wind up leaving just when people arrive, and having people like Salfea as a recommendation for people who are in a different time zone from me is a really nice one. I realize that Salfea streams for reasons other than me finding a recommendation for someone, but it's very helpful to have streamers like Salfea to say, hey, you like that? You like this sort of thing? Go check them out. So 2 wonderful broadcasters who, when I get the chance, I love to catch, and I always feel a little bit bad that I can't catch them more. Wrapped in the King, detailed accounts of secret bacchanals and ecstatic dances observed in the necropolises and graveyards in southern Europe, in Egypt, and in Anatolia. The author is a self-confessed ghoul, an eater of buried flesh. He claims to have witnessed the dances while at his feasting. The dances draw from the traditions of the mysteries, of the cults of Isis and of Sybil, but include both symbolic and literal flayings, and the human heart is always central in the rites. The author punctuates his accounts with queasily sensuous descriptions of his own interrupted feasts. At these greater feasts, a black pig is always crowned as king before its slaying. On this occasion, its heart was weighed in the balance against a knot of feathers, and its skin became a cape for the officiant. Its flesh was left for the crows, but I must confess that my interest was not in its carcass, but in the perfumed flesh of the milliner laid fresh in the earth. Okay, I do need to get the wormwood dream back, so the best way for me to have that happen will take the whist. I'll read one of the confounding parable stories. Let's do It Is Written. Have a wonderful evening, Mal, and thank you very much for stopping by. I'm glad that you got a chance to catch the stream. Good luck on your stats homework. And I hope to see you again. If not, I hope you have a fun time in Brandkrug when you can get around to it. But don't neglect your studies. Assuming that you're doing study, maybe you're just reading this for your own interest. Memories don't last long outside books, but it's made the difference for the day. I just need to double check here that we've got... Yes, we've got collaboration, we've got memory. Now we give the potion. I can offer my assistants something to drink. This will increase their aspects. They'll also be glad of the refreshment. All right, a floating island. Vanilla, custard, and meringue, landscaped and carameled. A Claridge's specialty. Nuts. All right, what was the next one? Orange jumble, almonds, and sugar. Actually, I'm running out of sugar. And looks like I need to add the spices. So you'll notice, by the way, full craftable menu. All right, a dish with forge, grail, heart, and lantern. Carrots, tomatoes, marrows, and blessed onions, all the unsung heroes of the stew pot. So I think what I'm going to do here, I'm going to keep the surplus vegetables off to the side. The pumpkins aren't necessarily going to go to waste. Those are going... Ooh, mushrooms! Alright, I can make a... I've got another use for a meringue, although I think I'm out of sugar. Yeah, I'm going to need to order some more. Okay, well, that's something for my to-do list. A curious seashell. Brandkrug is said to lie in the bounds where the world ends. Odd creatures have made their dying way to the beach. I used to be able to put it on here. Oh, there we go. Okay. Now I want to keep at least one tryst set aside for the Wormwood Dream. All right, I think I'm good for the Honey Scar Jasmine now. We've sort of got our... Well, there's no quota, but I think we've got enough to carry me through. Okay, let's just get a quick read on what we're working on. So we're getting the confounding parable from It Is Written. We will use that with the Edicts Martial to make a Wormwood Dream. Mr. Kill will open up. I should maybe make a decision on where they're going. So I could feed him another U-Blank and open up the Rattling Tunnels. That is actually slightly more appealing right now, just because I know I can open up the Crystallized Chamber whenever I want. So I think I will actually give him the U-Blank, just so we can get that out of the way. Madad, thank you very much for resubscribing. I hope you're doing well. Okay. I think... Yeah, the focus is going to be on Mr. Kill. So let's just get him up to 15. And then I am going to need another Ava's Locks, but that can happen whenever. I'm doing well. I wish I was starting on time, especially because of what it means for my bedtime, but it's very hard to be unhappy when playing Book of Hours, and of course I'm getting to play House of Light ahead of time, so that just makes me feel even better. I can offer my assistant any suitable timber I have lying around. This will increase their aspects. They'll also keep any of the wood that's left over. Okay. Gonna stay the course here, I think. It is written, Musgrave, fourth of the DeWolf line, writes tentatively about the Covenant of Brandkrug and the legacy of the sacred inks he calls Incasta Potentialia. So, Oswin, this is an example of the sort of text that you might want to pay attention to when it comes to some other uses for crafting, although I don't think this one is going to give you too much away. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said anything, but... As the light passeth through a prism into many colors, so the great ink separateth into the lesser inks, and the lesser inks into inks minor. Musgrave coyly refuses to talk of the great inks, or else refuses to admit that he doesn't know much about them. He insists that Ugol and Stargol, which can be mixed with sufficient nectar or sky aspect, are sufficient for most befitting purposes. The Moth, the Grail, and the Egg Unhatching all tell different stories of the world's beginning. One of those stories is the oldest, but it may not be the first. Abbas Nona. Okay, so I think we can actually do this at a... Well, let's see. I may just do this at the Nocturnary, but... So take the Confounding Parable, we'll combine that with Edicts Martial, and yeah, we can craft a Wormwood Dream without any trouble. Recall a forgotten crime of moon and winter. I think tomorrow we'll use some elements of the soul to feed the chickens. Although I suppose I should ask what I plan to do with this remaining whist. Let it clutter up their shelves. This has improved their aspects appropriately. Mr. Ryan Spry doesn't mind stopping for a gossip. I could, I suppose, make an Eigengrau. Orange Jumble. They should be the size of teacup rims, and should curl their crisp edges faintly pink as the underneath of a young mushroom. Lady Jekyll, Kitchen Essays. Well, part of this came from the time when I wasn't committing things to the Tree of Wisdom, so I kind of had to learn how to, how to make the most of the day. When I watch people play on Twitch, I tend to notice that like every element of the soul is not necessarily used by the end. I do tend to find that people just do less over the course of the day. But the thing is that, with this much time in the game and having built my habits, I actually do find it difficult not to sort of pause the game and try and plan out like everything that I want to do with my elements of the soul. This may also, it is absolutely not lost on me that like every day that I play in Book of Hours, every single element of the soul is completely exhausted. I've probably used it twice over because I've gone to the Sweet Bones to like earn, like to have a snack and then like earn some extra energy to go back. And it is definitely not lost on me that the streams are starting later because I'm spending a lot of time at work and, not taking my vacation time and all of that. Like I have a feeling that there's probably something about my personality that's being communicated in terms of this game. But you know what? Let's just look over that. Let's not go too closely into that story, huh? All right, let's take the orange jumble and put it. I've got space here. Crusty bread. Baked bread, a dish with edge, forge, heart, and nectar. I love that the delay, like, I don't always recognize the delay, but I do love when the delay reveals that we're basically on the same wavelength. All right, I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There's no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. Although, having talked with you about information theory, I'm not entirely sure what you're describing in terms of what you're getting done in a day is reflective of your work ethic. I have a feeling that you work very, very hard at what you do. Still trying to find a use for the whist. Oh, this is welcome. So that's going to replace the one that we just gave to Mr. Kill. Let's also just get a quick accounting. Okay, yeah, so we can take the sea glass. We can use the tryst to make another run. I actually don't think a second Eigengrau would be a bad idea here. So it's not the most creative choice, but I think it's a worthwhile one. So distill a kind of possibility. Quenchings and quellings with Prentice level winter creates Eigengrau, or for a scholar level recipe, crush a flower in and mix a pale and chilling draught. All right, let's see. So with Tryst, we're going to go back to Crowcross Sands. I don't have another fet for the moor, but that's fine because we got some mushrooms to work with. Dead men don't tell no bloody tales. Well, who'd listen? Not sure there's much that I can hang on to with Mr. Kill at this point, but we can keep talking. There's not a whole lot that I need. Alright, to use bread with a knife and mushrooms, ham, pilchards, or other savory things, or add apples and spice for a classic English pudding. Where can I keep this? There we go. So I'm actually gonna try... So pilchards on toast we know. Mackerel doesn't work. Yeah, marrow doesn't work. Egg croquettes we already know. I think this is the ham and cheese toasty. Trying to think of what the other savory things might be. Oh, I guess the mushrooms. So if you can just give me one quick second here, I want to double check a spelling thing. Okay. I'm not not expecting much, but I wanted to at least eliminate the possibility. Only other thing I could think of would be like a basket of vegetables, or we did the gourds. Onion toast. Yeah, I'm out of ideas. Oh, hang on, but I shouldn't be doing nothing with it. Okay, so crusty bread, true. Onto roast potatoes. Roast potatoes, a dish with edge, forge, heart, and winter. Let's hope it's equally possible to forget this again. If there are laws which apply only in Dream, then it must also be that there are crimes which can only be committed there. And an afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers through the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. Now, I guess the catch here is normally I would try to restore the whist, but the question is, like, what exactly do I expect to do with it in the next minute? One of them would be I could probably restore it and make some more money at the Sweet Bones. Well, yeah, you know what? It's silly, but I can't, you know, it's not a terrible thing to make money. I don't remember if we can put... No, so the stolen secret would normally be very helpful, but I can't really do that much with it. In this case, I'm going to get Mr. Kill to open up the rattling tunnels. The dead do not walk here, but their eyes are upon me. I can quell them, or I can feed them. So I need to decide if I want to keep the Storm or the Foresight overnight. The surface of the substance is difficult to resolve, almost as if it wasn't there at all. Hello, Index Gnome. How you doing? We're just finishing our last little bit of replacement cooking, and then we're going to put together the ingredients for the salon, which again has the expectation of winter. So roast potatoes. You really need rosemary for roast potatoes, but fortunately the kitchen gardens at Hush House has never been short of rosemary. Oh, looks like there's not enough room to put them where I want. Okay, this'll do. Okay, so I have a basket of apples. My options here are apple pie or just keep the apples. Or wait, did I already use the apples? I'm trying to remember what I used them on, if I did. I'm actually going to take the time to look for them because making the apple pie would be ideal. It's one of the last things that I need to make. There they are. Basket of apples, notoriously hard to take just one bite. So they don't really work on their own for anything. So now I am kind of curious. So if I... Do I really have an apple charlotta? Yep, there it is. Okay, so we are going to make an apple pie. How very American of me. Right, I need the spices. Bacon apple pie, a dish with forge, grail, heart, and nectar. I think this one I actually need to record the stats for as well. Hey, this is welcome. Sea-strewn, salt-snared stuff. Now. All right, no new books in here, but the catacombs. In the days of honey, those who remembered brought the bones of their dead to the gray rock and the sea. In the time of the eagles, those who remembered brought the bones of their dead to the gray rock and the sea. In the time of the Bear King, the clans brought the bones of their dead to the gray rock and the sea. When the Wolf Kings came, those who remembered brought the bones of their dead to the gray rock and the sea. Through all the years of sun and bronze, those who remembered brought the bones of their dead to the gray rock and the sea. Much is taken, much abides. Inside of it, we have Lambrig Broselendi, chalice distilled from apples in the oldest forest of the western continent. Sea glass, smooth as an egg, frosted like a winter window. Sacrament Asite, back in the Dawn period, the Sisterhood of the Triple Knot used this in the rites of the Horned Axe. A Widow's Candle, light it in remembrance. We have Ava's Locks, a pale rack washed up on the beach by Brankrug, another Widow's Candle, and Atlantic Amber, Sunset's Colors, Pine's Blood. And we have the Catacombs Altar. Bone is the memory that does not die. So it will accept Moon, Scale, and Winter for Scale and Memory as well. And then for Devotion, it will accept an Element of the Soul, an Omen, Remains, a Mark, or a Cooperative Pet. And it will accept a Memory or Remains in the Remembrance. So the other thing that matters here is what this is potentially unlocked. So we've got a few sealed vaults available to us now. So we've got the sealed vault here, 16 edge or 16 knock. We have the sealed vault with 14 knock or 14 scale. And then crystallized chamber. I'll just tell you, I know that there's a vault behind that as well. So in terms of things that we can realistically expect to open, the crystallized chamber is a pretty good option. Maybe the Wing Haunted Cave. I need to think about what I can do with Mrs. Kill. And the Ravaged Cellar. Yeah, so we have a few options. Night has fallen, dawn will come soon. So decision time. Do I want to hang on to the storm? I think I'll keep the Foresight, and that's mostly just because it's not that hard for me to make a storm. But I believe we are going to be crossing over into winter, so I may be able to get 13 winter without having to put too much effort into that. All right, so I'm going to take a minute to write down the stats here. Apple pie, flaky, buttery crust, tart sweet apples with cinnamon and nutmeg. Okay. Pudding. Forge. 2 heart. 1 grail. 1 nectar. So if you can just give me a quick second here. I want to slightly change how I'm labeling a few of these things. Okay, yeah, so there's only 2 things that I don't have in the house, one of which I haven't made yet, which is the Honey Haunted Amber Pumpkin Pie. Now, clearly there are recipes that I have not yet discovered. That's easy enough to see from the... that's easy enough to see from when I put the spice scales in. But I think the time has come for me to think a little more seriously about the upcoming Salon. So, the plan for the Salon is going to be... I've decided that I really like the idea of inviting the Kills back. They seem to be so excited to sort of stop by. But I think what we're going to do here is I'm going to... crap. Yeah, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a more serious conversation with just initiates or related, and we will invite the Kills over for a special occasion with some other guests for the next one. So We're bringing Wakefield, Connie Lee, Arthur Moore, D.I. Moore, Eason Fekri. So then the question is, of these last 4, who else am I bringing? Peter Ekdistis is not a bad choice here. Or Serena. Actually, I like the idea of Serena too. So Serena takes... Forge, food, and drink. Okay. So, what we're going to do here, this is going to take a little while on my part, but I think what I want to do here is I want to work out exactly what I want to serve at this salon now, so that I can plan everything out. So, first thing I need to remember is that I want at minimum 1 first, 1 main, 1 side, 1 pudding. And then it's winter... Winter Sky, Lantern, Forge, and Moon, and then there's going to be a little bit of funniness with the food. Hey, Prosciutto Fest, I didn't even know you were streaming. How are you all doing? I get a chance to shout out a couple of streamers that I really like. You Demon Cord! Hello, pretty god, how are you doing? I am very sorry I missed that then. When did you start streaming? So, for those of you who don't know, Prosciutto Fist is an absolutely wonderful streamer who I found through Book of... Okay, so it basically started around the time that I did. Okay, cool. So Prosciutto Fist is somebody who I actually found through Book of Hours and has just been a wonderful broadcaster to watch. I actually did not get a lot of sleep last night because we had an incredibly enjoyable time playing. So I've always heard of it as 6 Degrees of Wikipedia, but I've also heard Wikipedia Races. I'm going to leave it to Prosciutto Fist and Viridian, who are participating in the races, to share some of the suggestions that came up. There's a very... what shall we say about Pro's audience? Very touched in the head in terms of some of the suggestions that were coming up. Extremely unusual pages. But, you know, I don't mean to insult Prosciutto Fist's audience. They obviously have excellent taste in coming over to, you know, come over to hang out and on my side. But Pro actually wound up... getting me to pay attention to strange horticulture, because I think the original reason why she started playing Book of Hours was because of the similar art styles. I've seen her spend a little bit of time in Disco Elysium, a lot of time in Baldur's Gate 3. And some time in Assassin's Creed, but a little bit like Osmond Meow, somebody who is definitely a very interesting person with lots of varied interests if you take the time to sort of hang out and get a little bit of an idea of what they're interested in. And one of the things that really caught my attention here is Pro was talking about doing some history streams. In fact, I seem to recall I'd shared a lecture by Rear Admiral Grace Murray Hopper, and she'd said, it'd be kind of interesting to do history streams, like to either watch a history video or to talk about history. And this seemed like a really good idea. I can actually remember way back, this is a few years ago on Twitch, I think they had just introduced the music category or something like that. I actually wound up banned because I was doing history. And it was because somebody was trolling because, like, not my benign form of trolling, being an actual dick. In LA Noir, and they decided, like, they took me really personally, so they actually kind of stalked the channel for a while, and essentially put in a complaint under the music category that I was playing music without, like, that was like doing, I was basically reading a history book to the channel, but they put in a complaint that it was basically an audio only stream under the music stuff. And the way that those kinds of bans work on Twitch is that if you appeal the ban, they reserve, and it's not overturned, you actually get an extension. So I had a 24-hour ban, and it's like, well, if I, protest this, then I'm potentially missing a broadcast. If it's 24 hours, even though it's unjust, I'm not, I'm just not able to chat in people's channels for a little while. So I think it's a terrible way that Twitch has done this. Like, essentially, it was somebody who was deliberately trying to create trouble for my channel, succeeded, and ultimately, I wasn't in a position where I felt comfortable, using the mechanism to protect my interests. But in the end, I mean, the end result of that is I've done less history stuff. Now, the thing is that the rules have changed somewhat over time, and they've definitely become a lot more accommodating. So I think the just chatting section would be the right place for that now. But yeah, definitely did not make me feel particularly warm to this platform. But I was really happy to hear that Pro was going to do this, because I actually think it's something that she'll do quite well. And we've obviously talked about lots of. So I know the Demon Core. I believe Pro refers to the Demon Core as her personal Roman Empire. So, and I believe the other ones in her poll were Pompeii, where her hero for women's rights, Pliny the Elder, went up in smoke, as it were. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire, and the Salem witch trials, which I believe she is quoted as saying were tough but fair. So anyways, if you would like to watch some more of the history stuff, if you want to watch her possibly come back to Book of Hours or Disco Elysium, but I don't want to promise. I just mentioned that because Awesome Meow has done these and done them wonderfully. I am a cyberbully. But no, I had a lot of fun hanging out with Prosciutto Fist last night and throughout all of her broadcasts. I do sometimes have to see her deal with some nonsense inside of her chat. She handles it with grace, and definitely a streamer who I have enjoyed spending a lot of time with. And not to be outdone, Hannah Viridian is also a broadcaster, has been doing quite a bit of Baldur's Gate with Pro, but also does GTA roleplay. And I've actually there's really only other one GTA roleplayer which I've watched, which was Sheriff Eli. Kind of got his start when GTA roleplaying became a big thing. He's since moved on to do other topics, other games. But definitely Viridian has a wonderful personality, a wonderful channel in her own right. A lot of the qualities that I like about Prosciutto Fist, but is definitely sort of her own person. And so I realized the last couple of streams have been these long, kind of long roll calls of wonderful streamers. But Sophia, Prosciutto Fist, Oswin Meow, Lord Gloom. You know, these are all people who I do actually think it's worth spending some time watching. So I do want to take the time and shout them out. And then you also get to see the kind of crazy things that they say inside of Prosciutto Fist's channel, such as furry community to eternal leaders of North Korea. I'm sure some of you will be able to make sense of what that means. Anyways, so it's going to be a little... we have one brain cell. You took it for tonight. You can have it back now, Viridian. I'm just going to see the boyfriend. Oh, actually, you know what? Pro, next time you have somebody coming in doing your exclamation mark age, what you should do is you should have the bot say something like, "Yes, I have a boyfriend." Anyway, yeah. I feel bad about it, right? Because this is stuff I never need to do. I mean, honestly, if I have a viewer who just, simply wants to engage me, they just, fly over and it's wonderful. But having moderated for a few folks, I realized that, yeah, I don't know. It's just like, it's one of these things where I can sort of laugh at it because I know I'm never going to have that problem. But it's, I get that if that's something that happens regularly, that loses its humor. But I'm glad everyone can have a sense of humor about it. Obviously, people like that deserve to be made fun of. Yeah, especially because I'm pretty sure out of everyone, and this is not even in a negative sense, but I am pretty sure that Oswin Meow is like the most mature out of everyone here, and I realize that may be a pejorative in this chat. I don't mean it that way. Like Oswin is doing like real contributions to humanity. So, and how you doing, Tiberiosity? What have you been playing lately? I haven't caught you. I want to say War Thunder, but that was Lord Gloom. So I wanted to guess that it was Final Fantasy, but anyways, enjoy your lurk. Tiber is also another broadcaster. Debatable, but I appreciate the thought. Anyways, sorry folks. For those of you not familiar with this game, this is Book of Hours, and I'm playing a debatably early beta, but I'm in the beta branch of the expansion that will be coming out on the 26th called House of Light. I believe, Pro, you got the Perpetual Edition, right? Any of you who own the Perpetual Edition, it's you get it for free. Yeah. And those of you who don't own it, it's not going to be that expensive, but it's adding cooking. It's adding the Lighthouse Institute, so you're basically adding a new era to the house in the form of the Lighthouse Institute. You get to write your previous visitors and bring them back to the house, and you get to extend the stories. So that's one of the reasons we want to bring Arthur Moore back. But the big feature that's fun about the cooking, in addition to the fact that you just get to make all sorts of delicious looking and sounding things, is that you get to host a salon. So is this just like a base builder? I've heard a lot about this game, but you have no idea what it is. Not so much a base builder. There's definitely a crafting element to it, but I'd put it to you this way, Raiden. You can think of it as a crafting RPG, but the thing about the RPG is that it's not so much in the sense that you have a character sheet with stats. Your stats are really more things like your elements of the soul and sort of the character that you play. I have been to Wales in an event. This was something that it's run by a separate group called Tricuspid Limited. I've done a couple of videos on it, but most of them were like Facebook advertisements. But basically, it takes place in it's a real place which is also mentioned in this game. It's called Treowyn. It's this centuries-old manor in Wales, and like it's in the kind of place where you actually get to see the night sky like it really looks. Like there is no unnatural light, and so you can actually see like all the stars, well, and satellites now obviously, but Like it's one of those kinds of places. Really, really interesting. And they sort of have this event. You stay overnight in this ancient house, and you kind of go. I mean, the ends of the stories, you like wind up going out into the gardens by torchlight. It's wild stuff. But it's an experience where you are actually in this like quasi supernatural place, and in the case of the event, it's specifically crafted for you to discover things. But I can actually say that this game has done this really good job of creating this feeling of going into an ancient manor and just discovering everything that's there. Now, as far as the plot is concerned, you are hired as a librarian for this place called Hush House. And you are, basically there's a shipwreck. You wash up on St. Brendan's Cove. And sort of the tutorial for the game is getting off of St. Brendan's Cove and trying to make it to the village and your friend there. So the manor is there. You just have to discover each room. Yeah. So what happens in this game is that you're specifically brought to restore and maintain Hush House, which has been abandoned since a fire 7 years ago. And there's also a couple of other suggestions that everything isn't quite as it seems, because there's reference to the restoration of the 1930s. So around, not exactly the same time, just a little bit after the fire, there is a restoration of the monarchy in England, which, if you know history, that didn't happen. And so there's some suggestions that maybe things are a little bit different. Now, if you've played the game preceding this, which this was Weather Factory's first game called Cultist Simulator, in the setting, which is known as the Secret Histories, there are actually 5 histories in which there are different events that happen. So, for instance, Alexander the Great, in one of the histories, meets with King Darius at Issus, but does not do battle with him. He actually, after Darius tells him a secret, he turns around and returns back to Macedonia. And so there are, again, 5 different histories with contradictory events. And part of the role of these special entities called hours is to actually work out the contradictions of those histories. And that is definitely something that comes into play inside of this game. So when you are introduced in a game like this, when there's an idea that there is a restoration of the British monarchy in the 1930s and the new king, there's a suggestion that perhaps you are not in a history that is the one that you and I are familiar with. But what's interesting is you get to the house and there's no evidence of a fire. There's a lot of rooms that you need to restore, right? It's a place that's been abandoned for 7 years. But you go from room to room. I'll show you what a locked room looks like. So in this case, the smoke... I'm not going to talk about that one. There we go. This will work. The sealed cell. A sign outside this cell reads, "Warning, do not insert keys without first invoking adequate authorization. The key is in the staff room, but I shouldn't turn it without invoking powers to provide a reasonable facsimile of authorization." So in this case here, this is a room that will require an assistance. So the librarian lives alone, but there's no shame in seeking assistance from others. Assistance can open new rooms or help with your studies. It disappears when used or at dawn. And it also has to have either one of Forge or Knock. Now, Forge and Knock are sort of principles that exist in this world. It's kind of the idea of sort of this fundamental stuff. It's a little bit easier for me to describe if I have my Elements of the Soul back. But basically the idea here is you actually have to put some effort into opening up these various rooms. And as you open up the rooms, you learn a little bit more about the house and who was in there previously, what went on, what this whole fire business was about. I'm only mentioning that is because there's a description in here that maybe we want to hold off on for a little bit. But I'll give you a couple of examples in terms of some of the more broad strokes in terms of the story. So this is an example of, it's not fully spoilers, but it's I'd like there to be a little bit of mystery before I go into that. So this First part of the house is known as the baronial period. So in the 16th century, the de Wolf family became the Barons Brandkrug, governing the Isle as their personal estate until 1759, when their line ended in madness and death. So after the baronial period, there was the Curia period. In the 18th century, a secretive cabal of scholars established the Curia of the Isle to manage Hush House, making it a haven of knowledge until 1896, when a disgraced librarian brought the house to penury. To give you an example of some of the things that you will learn about specifics, the Flood Gallery. Thirza Blake, 7th librarian of the house, extended this space, decorating it with semi-precious materials and filling it with the finest art Hush House's money could buy. Of course, after her enthusiasms brought the house to the brink of penury, much of it had to be sold off. And incidentally, if you want to know what Thirza Blake looks like, Queen! After the Curia period, there was the Nocturnal period. This is the most recent period in the history of the game. Nocturnal period. By the beginning of the 20th century, an unwise librarian's enthusiasms had brought Hush House to penury. Nocturnal Branch, later the Suppression Bureau, stepped in to offer an arrangement. Hush House received funding, but submitted to yearly inspections, and also surrendered a portion of the Isle for the branch's prison. Oh, Viridian, were you here when Prosciutto Fist read the letter about the prophet slime and the... Yes? You didn't understand it? Okay. Well, if you want, I can read the same letter. I feel turnabout's fair play. I should also mention you made the you made the clip. Oh, the banning clip. All right. Everybody had to hear this on Monday, but I'm totally okay doing it again. I will just share the other one. So also before the baronial period, you've got Solar Gothic period from the 11th to the early 16th century. The Sisters and Brothers of St. Brendan's dwelt on the Isle. It was a holy place, a wealthy place, and a center of learning, though a surprisingly obscure one. Then in 1534, the Bronze King Henry dissolved the foundation, exiled the Brethren, and gave the Isle to the family de Wolf. Yeah, no, go nuts. Go ahead and link, Pro. And then finally, the Dawn period, 599 AD, the traditional date of the first foundation here, sometimes called the Abbey of the Black Dove, sometimes the Abbey of the White Crow, but the Sisterhood of the Triple Knot first built their temples here much earlier than that. So the reason why I'm spending the time highlighting this is that the House of Light, as referred to in the title of the expansion, this is something that will be added to the game when you get that expansion. Behind the scenes, the Curia of the Isle is long gone. Once it preserved a little knowledge and a kind of safety here in Brandkrug and established the position of librarian. Rowena, secretary persistent of the Curia, a complex entity who long protected Hush House, is both exhausted and compromised, and so it is time for the librarian to return the favor and establish a successor to the Curia. The only thing that I haven't really done justice to this game for is that you are a person with your own interests. So one of the things you do at the very beginning of the game is you decide 2 elements of the soul to keep, and that will actually determine what journal you get. There are multiple origins in this game. So I am currently playing the Silverbound journal, also known as the Magnate. I was rich, but something was missing. I am no longer rich, and still something is missing. Hush House is a place of conclusions, and here as librarian I may find mine. The Magnate came to conclude a history where they will find peace, but you can complete the game by recording any history. You might wish to begin your studies with the Hushery Wisdom. And Memories the Magnate, I've lived too long, but I'm not ready to die. I've tasted everything, and it wasn't enough. Give me silence, give me peace, give me the peace of snow. So the other thing that's really nice about this game, and again, this is where it gets a little literary, you know, we have all of these books here. It's a game, in my opinion, largely about the acquisition and ordering of knowledge, and that can mean a number of different things. But one of the things that I like about this is as you are taking the time to explore this house and restore it, you are drying out your journal and you are restoring yourself. You are adding skills to the Tree of Wisdoms. You're getting elements of the soul back. There's just these nice little parallels, right? It's the sort of stuff that you'd read in English class and, you know, hopefully you would enjoy. Or sometimes you'd have a really tedious English teacher and you'd have to take some time to And you can lend books to people. When you found that out, I was so giddy. Yes. Well, and this is one thing you may like about House of Light, actually, is you get to invite them back after you do that. So that's another one. Anyways, I'm going to take a quick minute here. I apologize to those of you who have heard this a few times over, but I need to... Prosciutto Fist actually read this sight unseen. So I feel like I should return the favor, and you all can decide which of these readings is your favorite. I just need to find the plain formatting. So the author of this letter is actually in the game. It's Hokebald of... I used to say Posend, but Pro said Poxend, and I think that's probably closer to the real pronunciation. Anyways, it is... we've had him visit. So... Hokebald's address, a reluctantly disclosed P.O. box in Dover. Hokebald of Poxend flatly refuses to respond to an invitation from the librarian unless it is written in the great ink known as Orpiment Exultant. But he's also the author of the book My Deeds, My Powers, what is it? My Deeds, My Powers, My Accomplishments, and the Injustices Perpetrated Against Me, which I think in Cultist Simulator had the name Big Huff. But anyway. We are now going to read the letter called Profit and Loss. Palazzo Dario, Venice, 15th October, 1722. Madam, I regret the intemperancy of what must follow, but I write in haste and full wrath. Even now, my sleeves are beset with slither slime. You permitted me to bear away from your library that noble book, The History of Inks, for which I averred and still averred my gratitude. But, madam, you have behaved in a manner inconsonant with professional care. Madam, to the point, I provided myself a sacred precinct to mix the fifth ink. I set certain protections about the place. I had no wish to be interrupted by robbers or rivals. One of my prominence and noble stature suffers grievously from the envy of lesser practitioners. You must know, madam, that I am an adept of wit and skill, and that these protections were mighty in scope and extent. I warded against worm and storm and bite and sight and the 8 principles and the 400 names. But, madam, I warded not against the pettiest and the meanest. When one takes a lease upon a palace, one expects to bring one's own guards and retainers to defend against uninvited ill-wishers, but one does not expect to deploy ratting cats and mousing terriers for defense against the rodentry. That, madam, is a given. So, madam, I had assumed that as a competent preserver of knowledge, you would place a ward salutiferous to protect against such vermin as rob profits. Madam, I have taken the necessary time to compose myself, and I will tell the rest but briefly. The raw prophet was drawn to the history of inks by what I know not. E'en as I turned to fill the calson, it fell upon the book, and by the time I had returned back, the book was all but engulfed. I strove mightily against the raw prophet, with the strength, the great strength, of my arms, but raw prophets are flexile and indelicate creatures, and I won only slime and besmirchment, and intimate assault, at no small cost to my dignity. Therefore, madam, I do now insist and demand that, first, you abandon all claims upon the history of inks. The book is gone. I do not wish to inquire exactly where, but I imagine within the doings of the raw prophet. Second, that you compensate me for your incompetence. A gift of the second volume of the unexpurgated De Oris will, I suppose, suffice. Thirdly, that you compensate me for the cleaning of my garments. I attach the bill in full. Yours in honor, Hokebald of Poxend. A note on the letter reads, fine takers dispatched against Magister Hokebald. In case of non-payment, seek full compensatory redress from Society Obliviate. Oh, yeah. If you'd like, I can actually read, because I've read this one so many times. Madam, I am happy to read another one. So if you want, I can read one that's actually kind of gross, but it is useful. It is useful lore. Or I can read a little bit of a sad but kind of loving one. Or I can read both of them. I'm happy enough to read both if people are sufficiently interested. I think the lore is interesting in this, so follow your heart. The principle of the heart. I believe there is a heart-oriented one. What would we have? So, kissing the twins would probably be heart oriented. The sea and the tide probably. No gross. Do it. I'll do gross, and then we can cleanse our palate with sorry, I just need to open up the game folder. We'll cleanse our palate with something slightly romantic, but melancholy. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, this one is called Skolakosophy. This is a member of the Suppression Bureau writing. This is not the right... I mean, it's not that hard for this one. Read this one anyway. So, 1902, Skolakosophy, Velletri, Italy, March 25th, 1902. I should mention that there is a an incident that is referred to in this as the Ortuccio incident, which will be relevant. It's something bad happened. Superintendent, Nocturnal Branch, New Scotland Yard, Victoria Embankment, London. Superintendent Winford, please consider this my sequestration and assessment report for materials seized at Ortuccio. I am aware, you have reminded me on previous occasions, that administration distributes forms that we are generally expected to use for these reports, but the events since Ortuccio have made that impractical. Consequently, I have allowed myself latitude in the format. 1. Skull, deformed abhuman. Abnormalities consist with lamelles reveline, and the standard assessments suggested the expected oniric risk. Destroyed, pulverization, and dilution. 2. 3 cases domain reveline, 1865 vintage. Standard assessments suggested no discernible oniric hazard, retained for sale, and expenses recoup. You generally feel compelled to remind me, Superintendent, of the regulations on implied hazard. In turn, I generally feel compelled to remind you that I know what I'm doing. 3. Painting. Oils. Late 19th century. Artist unknown. Moonlit view of snowy city. Contemporary label identifies as Abydos uncrowned. Standard assessments clearly indicated significant oniric hazard. Destroyed. Incineration. 4. Diaries of Lord Franklin Bancroft, 1762 to 1770. 1889 Cater and Sons reprint. I am well aware that the branch depository contains the mandated 2 copies of this edition, and that I would normally be expected to consign it to the flames. However, my good friend Dottore Robigo has argued persuasively that they contain material important to my work here. Retained. Mirabolic mirror, composition unknown, clear and immediate oniric hazard. Destroyed, pulverization in the absence of light, dilution. 6. A Child's Treasury of Golden Afternoons. Jacob Gristwood. Clearly I am aware of the standing incineration order of this work, but this may be the only copy still in existence, and the Skolakosophic resources available to the branch are frankly embarrassing in their paucity. After a detailed examination, not to mention discussion with my very good friend Dottore, I have determined that it is much too valuable to be destroyed. Retained. 7. Fantastical triptych, oils 16th century, prodigious enthroned mass, adored by kneeling figures, vibrant depiction of heterodox Christian harvest festival. Standard assessments, when suitably interpreted, indicate negligible oniric hazard. And it was through this work that I made the acquaintance of my very good friend Dot Robigo. Retained. 8. Silver hand, life-sized. Inscription probably antique Persian. Standard assessments suggest minor oniric hazard. However, given this operation's urgent need for funds, I have determined that the scrap value of this piece outweighs its sale to the public. Retained for sale and expenses recoup. 9. 3 10-year vital extension bond documents, stolen decades with reckoner markings. The suspicious longevity of the Defores of Ortuccio was, you recall, one of the concerns that justified this seizure operation. That longevity is neatly explained by a reckoner connection and other documentary evidence, not material to an ANS report, also supports this conclusion. Despite recent developments, see below, I am inclined to forward this evidence to you as a professional courtesy. I have, however, resolved to retain the vital extension bonds for my own use. My physical development proceeds admirably, and I am approaching a critical stage at which I must take all necessary means to sustain my health. Retained for personal use. Approved. 10. Desiccated organic material, probably amniotic membrane. Call. It certainly tastes like birth. Standard assessments indicate significant oniric hazard. My invaluable friend Dot Robigo has suggested a safer procedure than incineration, incorporated into abdomen. I become impatient as I write, and in any case, I have rarely known you to pay my reports the attention they deserve. This concludes my report. A personal note follows. I now tender you my immediate and vigorous resignation. On somber reflection, Superintendent Winford, I am appalled that I permitted myself to be involved so long in the illegal operations of the British government. I am sovereign in a sovereign and noble nation, in a myopic and ignoble cause, under the orders of a man as minimal and sluggish as yourself. I have expropriated the funds originally provided for nocturnal branch operations in Italy, with the assistance of the provincial authorities, and, of course, dear Dottore Robigo, I am using those funds to endow a scolacosophy department at the Università di Velletri, though the Dottore and I have resolved that to minimize troublesome interference, we will operate publicly as a department of mycology. Now that I am free of your pettifogging and pious influence, I intend to expand both physically and mentally to the fullest possible extent. I hope that in light of the information I have chosen to share here, you will reconsider the static and sterile mode in which you have so long developed and address yourself instead to the possibilities of a more growth-oriented philosophy. Should you need my assistance in this alteration, you are welcome to visit my new department in Velletri, where I and my most excellent friend, Dottore Robigo, will tender you our most urgent and productive assistance. Yours, blah. Afterward, at the turn of the century, the nocturnal branch of the Metropolitan Police was responsible for protection against troubles unseemly and occult. After the fallout from the Ortuccio incident, the branch was dismantled and its functions absorbed into the Civilian Suppression Bureau. Let me just find something here. So, you probably haven't run into this yet. But, oh, can I not make this bigger? There we go. There are a lot of different hours in this game, and they're only kind of hinted at in Cultist Simulator. Like, depending on what you play, I think the expansions have a little bit more of it. But this is actually one of the first Tarot of the Hours cards that I saw. And the Crown Growth is an example of a god from nowhere. And, like, just look at this. Horrible. So, it's pretty clear... what are you doing? Get out of there! Pretty clear that the Ortuccio incident had some sort of... someone put too much soap in the washer. But yeah, so the Crown Growth... I've always felt very uncomfortable with the gods from nowhere, but the Crown Growth is a particularly gross... one. So what we will do, I will now read The Sea and the Tide. I just forgot to bring the PDF up. So Christopher Olopoli is the author of Traveling at Night and is referred to as the only readable occultist. And this one might be of interest to those of you that get a little bit closer to the end game of this. So, 1929, The Sea and the Tide. The Sweetbones Brandkrug, June 28th, 1929. My dear Christopher, I am so sorry. I would like to help, but I am afraid that I cannot, and I am afraid in any case that you've been terribly misled. The matter is a complex one, but I also know that your heart must ache. So I wanted to begin by saying this, that I cannot help, but I will also explain. I know the ink that you describe. It exists. I shouldn't tell you even that, and for the sake of our friendship, I ask that you burn this letter after reading. The ink called here in Castum Terminale, and it is a great treasure. The ink is called here in Castum Terminale, and it is a great treasure of the house. Its making is a closely guarded secret. Its use by any but the librarian is punished without mercy. When we become aware of delinquencies or abuse, we dispatch the fine-takers in their ultimate mode. Even I could not frivolously lay hands upon a sample of the incastum without suffering the severest consequences. But more importantly, the incastum is not what you have come to believe. Yes, it is used to curate the histories, which is why it is so carefully guarded, but it has no power in itself. It cannot change the past. I do not think it's even possible to change the past, not in the sense that you mean. There are many histories, as you yourself have written. The hours of the Mansus determine what events are considered a history, and which histories are braided into the future in which you will read and burn this letter. The hours are not all-knowing, nor infallible. I do not think it is even accurate to call them gods, although we so often revert to that convention. I do not believe, and for this I am grateful, that there are such things as gods. They do not take direction, but they have been known to take advice. You may know that Hush House lies under the hand of certain hours. I have no wish to draw their attention, so I will not name them. But they are most of them those who seek to preserve the world as it is. In our smaller way, that is also the goal of the Curia. The library of the house is provided with texts that qualify as material, the unintercised elements of proto-history, and they make their curations and determinations upon it. When they make those curations and determinations in the Incastum Terminale, the hours take note, and they value the librarian's opinion, if the librarian is of sufficient significance. So that is all the Incastum... So that is all the Incastum can do. When it is used in the right way by the right person in the right circumstances, it can draw the attention of the hours. And that is a very considerable thing. But it is not something you could use, as it were. It would not have the effect that you desire. I am sorry, my friend. She is lost to you. I can offer you only this slender comfort. One that you love has that for which she so dearly wished. And you had your reasons not to follow, and those reasons, I think, are very noble. You cannot change the choices you have made. None of us can. But I earnestly believe that you both made choices you should not regret. The sea does not regret the tide, and after the tide withdraws, something always remains, which we call memory. In very deep affection, your friend, E. P.S. I know I can be an old bore, but for a third time, I must beg you to burn this letter. And again, this is something which you get hints of inside of the game. In fact, also within some of the other letters, but this is in reference to the Christopher referred to is Christopher Olopoli, who is also mentioned in Christopher's Nook, or Olopoli's Nook. Yeah, something tells you didn't burn the letter. And then Teresa Galmier, also known as Baldemera in the third volume, is the one who's being referred to. So, all right. So I do still want to plan for the Salon. I realize that we haven't been doing some gameplay for a little bit, but I do need to figure out what I want to be making overnight. So I'm going to bring up my Excel sheet here. And the plan is that we're going to invite Zachary Wakefield, Connie Lee, Arthur Moore, Serena Blackwood, D.I. Moore, and Eason Fekri, possibly the author of that letter. So let's start by taking a look at winter. And, okay, so for drink... Actually, I won't worry about drinks right now. So for winter, we can do a pale marrow. Stuffed pale marrow, rather. That's a first course. A boiled egg. Potatoes are intermediate, so those don't count. Stargazy pie, that's a main course. Also the stuffed pale marrow. The floating island. That's pudding. Baked pear meringue. Walls of Yeast. Roast potatoes. Those are a side dish. Okay. So I only need one of those for Zachary Wakefield. But I also need to make sure that I have at least one first course, one side dish, one main dish, and one pudding. So Connie Lee is going to want Sky. So boiled egg for that. Cold pheasant with grape salad we don't have, but scrambled egg we do. That's also a first course. Game pie, which is a main course. Ham and egg casserole. Jugged pheasant. Roast pheasant. And egg croquettes. Okay, now Arthur Moore will want, surprisingly, lantern. Let me just double check that that's correct. Yep, okay. So Arthur Moore and Detective Illuminate Moore will both be interested in lantern. Now, there's not too many of those. So there's the stuffed golden marrow. There's the King's Luck pie. That's a main. We have orange jumble, so that's a pudding. Madeira cake. Not cake. Cornish honey cake. Okay, so Forge and Moon are the two last ones I need to check. All right, have a lovely evening, Prosciutto Fist. Thank you very much for hosting me, especially because I know I didn't do a lot of gameplay since you arrived, but I'm hoping your people were sufficiently entertained. Have a lovely evening, though. Okay, so the orange jumble has Forge. Game Pie has Forge. Ham and Egg Casserole has Forge. Roast Pheasant has Forge. Egg Croquettes have Forge. Stargazy Pie. Floating Island. Baked Pear Meringue. Roast potatoes. Ham and cheese toasty. Kedgree. Sea pie. Ham and potato bake. Marinated roast beef. Pumpkin pie. Steamed spring veg. You know what? I'm just gonna say, I really should leave the Forge aside. Like, I should be doing more, but honestly, Forge is going to be the easiest one to include inside of this. So the last thing I should look at is Moon, and I think I kind of already have an idea of how this is going to work. So Stargazy Pie seems to satisfy 3. So Stargazy gives me Forge, Winter, and Moon. Floating Island. Oh, yes. Also, roast potatoes. Okay, so that's going to give me Edge, Forge, and Winter. So Forge and Winter. I think the Floating Island is probably the most. So Floating Island gives us Forge, Winter, and Moon. So that's a main, side, pudding. So I need a starter. So the golden marrow seems like a good start. Yeah, so let's say stuffed golden marrow. Which gives me forge and lantern. And then we need to make sure that there's a food item for every. So it's Wakefield, Connie Lee, Arthur Moore. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need 6. Okay, so for the lantern, we'll add the orange jumble. Wait, how can I have 6? I need 5. Okay, so who am I kicking out? I guess Serena. So Wakefield, Connie Lee, Arthur Moore, D.I. Moore, and Eason. Yeah, okay. I don't think I need to change too much of that. So Stargazy Pie, roast potatoes gives us winter. Oh, but I don't have anything with sky. Okay, so let's just go back, take a quick look at the sky stuff. Boiled egg is a first course. Maybe? Boiled egg actually seems good, so... And maybe instead of the stuff... No, the stuffed golden marrow needs the lantern, so... okay. So for Wakefield, we've got a winter. For Connie Lee, we've got a sky. For Arthur Moore, we have a lantern. For D.I. Moore, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope, I messed up again somewhere. Okay. So yeah, my mistake here was focusing on all that forge stuff. Because I couldn't get Serena in anyway. So I think I'm actually going to build this around the 2 lantern ones. So orange jumble. And golden marrow. Under sky, I'm curious if I have... I think I'll go for the boiled egg. So that's for Connie. So what I'm short on now is a winter... So I need a side with winter or moon. I'm curious if there are any moon sides. Pickled pilchards. I think I'll do the roast potatoes. Actually, they don't have to be roast potatoes, though. Let's just see what we can do potato-wise. So we have one with winter, one with knock, one with grail. Nope, we do good old-fashioned roast potatoes. Which leaves me with moon, which will probably be my main. Yeah, so we can do stuffed dark marrow, stargazy pie, or pickled mushrooms. I think we just do the stargazy pie. Okay, so the last thing that I need to do is I need 2 lantern drinks. I need 2 sky drinks. And I need 1 winter drink. So I think I have an answer there. The sky drinks are actually quite tricky. I don't believe there is a sky drink on its own. I guess the one way I could find that out would be to mouse over. So I think for that, I basically need to rely on my Blue Crown tea. I think Eigengrau... Yeah, Eigengrau gives me winter, so I can use 1 Eigengrau, 2 cups of the Blue Crown tea, and then for lantern, I think we can use the Dandelion wine because we're practically drowning in it at this point. So the last question would just be where I host it. So it'd be tempting to host it in the Physic Garden, except that we may be hosting it in winter. Now, I did want to do a different room each time, but I can't host it in the chapter house because of the intoxicating drinks. Although I suppose I can turn that around. I could serve a glass of water and then we just use these teacups. Maybe that's the better answer, actually, that we use this tea in the chapter house. We'll see. So we can't use this location. We've already hosted in the refectory, which is here. We've hosted in the Hall of Division. We couldn't host here in winter. Okay, so I actually think we are going to try and do a Salon in the chapter house, which means we want to kind of clear this stuff out so that we can be ready to go. It's the fastest way for me to do this. You know what? I won't even worry about that. Let's make the things that I need, and the first thing that I'm going to need to do is actually buy a bit more sugar. So I think we'll do 4 sugar. I think that's Cater and Hero. And then we can make the roast potatoes as a start. Roast potatoes, a dish with Edge, Forge, Heart, and Winter. An afternoon spent profitably, reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. We'll just let that run its course. Alright, let's see if there's anything else I can pick up from Cater and Hero that I'd need. Dripping flour, milk, potatoes, butter, sugar. Yeah, all of that we are good for. So we're going to put that in the post. Provide money equal to the cost. The post mistress will make out the order. So for 24, a florin will do. Complete the order. And we're ready to prepare. I gotta find a place for these pumpkins. Postmistress signs and seals the order and places it in the place that stamped orders are properly placed. Wait 3 days, she commands. Memories fade, assistance departs, but the soul is refreshed. So I'm thinking, let's actually start by putting the different items up. So this is the orange jumble that I wanted, and again, that's the lantern. Oh, no room. No room. I think we're just going to load up the Hala division at this point. And then we're going to move some of the tea because I don't want that to wind up consumed as part of the salon. So okay, so that's a start. So we move the orange jumble. Now, one nice thing that I can do is we can start feeding the pumpkins to the chickens. Resentful Terrence. Cluck, cluck. Satisfy this creature's appetite. Food will make a hungry beast or a wild one cooperative. I'll wait for the weather before we commit to using Mr. Kill tonight. Golden Marrow's another one that I don't already have in the inventory, so this will do. Boiled egg. We can make one of those, but I'll move this one up. Roast potatoes, which I think we're currently making. And then we did just make a stargazy pie. I just don't remember where I put it. Okay, rainy day. I've carried a memory like a flambeau, safe through the mazes of night. Alright, we're well and truly into the season now, so let's bring in Mr. Kill. Mr. Kill always enjoys a chance to catch up with me. If you don't choose a topic, Mr. Kill will offer help as a friend. So let's go investigate the beach in winter. And then we'll head out to the moor as well. Obviously, we're not going to host the salon today because we are committing our elements of the soul. And I would like to get some I would like to get some more elements of the soul before we... Well, actually, maybe we can just take a chance with it, but... Okay, Stargazy Pie. Where did I put you? Probably not down there. Let's get going on the Sweet Bones routine. It is winter and the storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire in the Sweet Bones with a beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. There's the Stargazy Pie. Was that everything? I feel like I'm missing one. Right, the potatoes. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that'll be the 5th. So we'll get working on that Stargazy Pie. Where I can, I'd prefer to have the replacements for everything. Also, I just have more dough than I know what to do with, so... Alright. Winter drink is just a glass of water, so I can provide that. And then we need 2 glasses of the Blue Crown. Serve appropriately. Pour out. Pour it out. Always served cold. More accurately to say, inevitably served cold. Okay, we're definitely going to need more Blue Crown. So we will take our health and gather in winter. As for the others, Honey-Scarred Jasmine, Lenten Rose in winter. I think I already have Lenten Rose. I think I'll wait and get another 2 Blue Crown because that's obviously very helpful for us. Okay. We'll feed the pumpkins to the pumpkin to the chicken, and then we will be ready to improve Mr. Kill. Actually, one thing I'll do is I'll talk with Mr. Kill about the Wormwood Dream, just because that's a little easier. I'll be able to get the dream set up. A full belly makes a helpful friend. Okay, so we'll chat with him about the Wormwood Dream. I can discuss a memory with my assistant. From there, we will read a book with... confounding parable. We're onto the Moon's Egg. And then once we have that memory, we can construct another Wormwood Dream. Alright, here we go. We are continuing on the Affair of the Dappled Rose, and here we have Lala Chaima. We already have her address, incidentally. Huntress Gourmet, occasional bureau consultant. When it can't be killed and it really needs killing, Haima's the one they turn to. So, the Affair of the Dappled Rose. In the hissing wastes of sand where once stood a city called Maya, another man has died, but he almost made it out. He made it far enough that a goatherd found him, raving to the end about gardens with a flower crushed in his hand. So we will satisfy her curiosity, but we have a couple of other things to do before we do that. Better now. Memories don't last long outside books, but it's made a difference for the day. So, we will feed our other chicken. Bleeding tuppence. Cluck, cluck. They get a whole pumpkin to themselves. Okay, let's not give up the fet. We'll use whist in this case. Satisfy the creature's appetite. Food will make a hungry beast or a wild one cooperative. And there's our replacement Stargazy Pie, so we'll just put that back in the division room. Now, it's worth remembering here that we'll make another Blue Crown tea. I think that'll be the last thing that I do with my afflicted shell-crossed whist. But short of the orange jumble, we've done all the cooking that we need, and we've got the invitations ready. So unless I start committing things to the Tree of Wisdoms, we're basically ready to host the Salon. So yeah, like I said, we'll wait for the Blue Crown. Actually, I have an idea about how I might be able to restore my element of the soul. Animal bones, what remains? Ah, yes, sand. My favorite. Okay, so still waiting on the Blue Crown. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, so we take the Foss, the Shell-Crossed, and Inks of Revelation. So I don't even need the memory in that case. Or I pour myself a glass of dandelion wine, and then I don't need to worry about the... Yeah. Again, we'll wait for the Blue Crown. Was that a puffin? Let me think. This one? I guess it was. I wasn't even thinking about it. That's the first time I've noticed a puffin. Hello, little guy. The good news for you is it doesn't take a whole lot to unlock Crowcross Sands, so... Okay, The Moon's Egg, the third and last volume... Oop, no! Third and last volume of the Meditations of Abbot Thomas of the Abbey of the Black Dove. Abbot Thomas speaks of the coming death he hears in the sound of the waves, but rejoices that his blood will water the egg of the moon, by which he seems to mean the future. The last chapter was dictated, not written, by Abbot Thomas. When Thomas's old sword brother Trigev returned to raid the abbey, Thomas had broken his monastic oaths and taken up arms to defend the abbey. The two had been mortally wounded. Thomas's last words are, "The wheel turns, the moon sleeps." Okay, so let's get my Wormwood Dream back. Recall a forgotten crime of moon and winter. So more or less where I want to be today. I do want to find some more uses for my, you know, core health metal Faust, so on and so forth, but kind of depends on a few other things. Okay, blue crown. The sky-colored petals of blue crown are always cold as frost. I'm gonna get more blue crown just so I can make the most of the season. And then the last thing I'll do with my shell-crossed whist is not that. We're gonna make blue crown tea, a hot drink with nectar blue, nectar sky and winter. Okay, so I need to find uses for the Metal Faust, Trist, and... well, actually, the Whist I'll talk with Mr. Kill about. I'm slightly curious if I... No! Alright, I don't think they're ever going to restore the ordering the way I liked it. It is winter and the storms have tightened the seas. I am sitting before the fire in the sweet bones with the beef and potato pasty in one hand and a hot ale posset in the other. Okay, we are ready to go. Tuppence has got a full belly. So next up we are going to give Mr. Kill a drink of something. So, Solomon's preparation. Solomon Husher would take this every night without fail before sleep to close his ears to the sound of the waves. But on the 9th of January, 1838, a heavy snow fell on Hush House. When the other residents dug themselves out, Husher was nowhere to be found. He had left a resignation letter and an undrunk measure of his preparation. A nice drop. I can offer my assistants something to drink. This will increase their aspects. They'll also be glad of the refreshment. So it's a little late with Lala, but we're, like, again, we're going to focus on Mr. Kill for a bit. And then we can move up. So in this case, I'll just talk with him about the whist. And then he's ready to open an area. Collaborate whist. We will watch for what lies ahead. And I'm almost done my tea. Blue Crown tea, always served cold. More accurate to say, inevitably served cold. Okay, so, and I know we talked about this before, Oswin, so how do you heal an afflicted element of the soul? Clearly I got a lot of use out of this in terms of cooking. I've got some sugar coming in where I'll eventually want to make the orange jumble, but I think the shell-crossed whist, you know, my thoughts are tangled and unfamiliar to me, something of those who came before. The Carapace cross has always lingered in humankind. It's risen now in me. I think I kind of want to get that out of me. So normally I would serve the wine here, but this is mostly empty, so, you know, I can just take the bottle. The way you really heal sickness is take a wine bottle to bed with you and just go to town. So what I'll then do is take my Inks of Revelation, remembering here that it says cured with lantern. This malady can be cured with bed rest, something suitable, perhaps bright and invigorating to drink, and this much lantern aspect to rekindle the soul's light. So in this case, I'll take the Inks of Revelation, and then we had the foresight from before, so I just add that into the bed, and I'm good to go. Now, this was a lucky one because it just accepted these aspects. If you don't have a bed that accepts the aspects that you need, you have to get a little more clever about it and just find like memories and skills that have related aspects. So, for instance, for the foresight, if I had a bed that accepted forge, it would take that, and I'd be able to add the lantern. The drink is always free, so the drinks that you have immediately available to you, like the dandelion wine or the Second Flesh of Sam. Those are available to you pretty much from the very beginning. So those will be good for at least one lantern. And then, again, you need to find a lantern memory that'll work for you. So Revelation is lantern on its own. That's not too helpful. Sunny Days are 2 lantern, and they have the sky aspect. I'm trying to remember. Excuse me. Bittersweet Certainty, if you found a book that does that, but Bittersweet Certainty isn't always the easiest to find at the start. I'm drawing a blank on the other lantern stuff. And then, of course, your skill is potentially something that can give you some lantern. So it's not a piece of cake, but it's definitely something that, with a bit of effort, you should be able to get the elements that you need. So in my case here, I took the fact that I've got 3 lantern with Inks of Revelation 2. Foresight gives me 4, and then the dandelion wine. I would need some kind of refreshment anyway, but if you consider an object with a certain aspect, will it give you a memory of the same aspect? Probably not, but that's actually a good idea. The consideration, it's not guaranteed that this will give you each time. But if you look at things, that will give you a sight memory. That's good for 1 lantern. If you taste something, that will give you grail. If you hear something, that will give you heart. If you smell something, that gives you nectar. And if you touch something, that gives you forge. And I can tell you objects that will give you all of those things, but of course some of the fun is just exploring the house and learning some of this for yourself. So if you would like to know, I'm happy to tell you, but that's going to be one that I let you opt into just because there's obviously quite a few items. Imagine you going... Listen, I did. There's only one way I can learn that. Better now. So again, we'll just keep making money with the winter. It's not the highest priority, but it's something that I can do while the time passes. Okay, got my Wormwood Dream back. My assistants and I will be prudent. So Mr. Kill's at 14. We will talk with Lala. There are things that I need to know. On the Dappled Rose, Maya in the desert. Always they come to me for desert work. So let's see what we can do. We need 4 rows for this one. Looks like Concursum Diaries is my only real option here. Just double check that we don't have anything unexpected. Okay. It's all well and good for me to say, well, maybe there's something over here. That may be true, but I think most of the... Okay, well, just versus 6, so... Do you experience the game as a card game, or do you picture yourself physically navigating the house? Curious about how you're conceptualizing the game. So I I kind of live in between. I don't fully see this as something. It's actually kind of funny because I think one of the developers actually commented on how I seem to have a very sort of mechanical way of playing the game, and that wasn't like intended as an insult or anything like that. They just found it very interesting. So in one sense, I do like to immerse myself in the game, but I never have the game play out as a movie in my mind. I tend to keep an idea of what I am doing in my head, but I don't keep it in a vivid detail like a motion picture just running in the back of my head. So definitely. So for instance, here when I'm talking with Lala Kaima, Maya in the desert, always they come to me for the desert work, and I'm having this conversation. I am imagining a conversation with someone, and we're taking them through the house, and I'm getting them the book that they want, and I imagine this is people who are moving in space, but I don't actually work out the details. So it's not a full imagination in the sense that I imagine someone walking through the house. It's not so abstract that I don't imagine, that I only sort of see what's on the card here. So it's almost kind of like dream. Now I say it's almost kind of like dreams, but I appreciate that everybody's dreams are different. But for me, it's a little bit like my dreams, where it does tend to have sort of this. It like skips over the inconvenient bits, or the ones that are not relevant to the details. So yeah, I guess it could be kind of comparable to how I like listen to a radio play, or how I read a book. Like some of the books that I read, I don't actually have every detail in my head. Some of them I just sort of enjoy as concepts sort of rolling around my head, rather than sort of playing out as a movie, if that makes sense. Sorry, I should read the description. So, deserts. They are not all so alike as the Bureau thinks. Deserts with hauntings and with curses, even less alike. Yeah, exactly. I think that this will be enough. I leave now for Maya. Thank you. Okay. I can't remember where I was keeping the blue crown. One thing I might try and do is get another egg, but we'll see. We'll see where I'm at the end of the day. Actually, one thing I can do, I could try and get a marrow, or I can try and get more pumpkins. I think I'll try my luck with the pumpkins. This is a pumpkin. Marvelous. I keep getting ordinary pumpkins, so I don't know how long I want to sort of bang my head against getting the ordinary ones. There's really no reason for me not to be using Mr. Kill at this point, so let's open up the crystallized chamber. My path is blocked by shining surfaces like curdled light. Dark shapes shift beneath. We can tap away the crystal if we're... Oh, sorry, I should read the description first. Oh yeah, no, sorry, that's there. We can tap away the crystal if we're careful, but we must be careful. I don't see much value in bringing back the whist, so we'll just let that stay the way it is. Alright. So, of the characters Dagmar, something in the story of the Dappled Rose made Daymare wonder if she should return to Maya one more time. Madame Bichet had no intention of going all the way to Maya, but, sorry, Mademoiselle Bichet had no intention of going all the way to Maya, but after researching the matter at the house, she remembered an associate who might go there on her behalf. And Lalakaima undertook a commission for the Bureau in Maya. Whether to find the piebald garden or conceal it, it was never clear. I should do something with this whist if I'm... let's talk with the chicken. Offer this beast my company. Who knows? Perhaps it will offer something in return. So the reason why I wanted to do this was talking with the chicken gives me more eggs, and it just sets me up to be able to pick up the to feed it the pumpkin tomorrow. And again, I don't have high expectations. If I'm lucky, we'll get through the night before, or so we'll get this cured before the night's done, but I actually think I'll get this back 13 seconds later, so. I command it to give me an egg. So yeah, I don't think, Oswin, I think probably I'll have to wrap up before we get the, the whist back, but that's basically how you restore your affliction. The Rowanarium. There was once a brother and sister who loved each other greatly. They resolved that they were one soul split into two bodies, and their greatest wish was to become one. They found the hidden isle where the twins, the sister and witch, had arrived when they crossed the great ocean, and a sacred pool on which the moon shone only once a year. There they spoke with the twins in dreams, and they learnt how they might become conjoined as one flesh and immortal. Now the brother's resolution failed him, and though he loved his sister, he could not choose to spend eternity joined in one flesh. The sister could not persuade him, and she would not abandon him or force him. So they used their arts to live long lives, close but separate, and they made a double foundation of monks and nuns, as chaste as they had always been, but each nun had her brother twin, and none could enter alone. In time, the sister found her own immortality, and to this day she walks the world by moonlight. The brother died, and his bones are buried in the room beneath the well, but his children live on. And this unlocked the path to the sealed vault. 14 Grail, 14 knock. And now it suggests a meal would be welcome. Yep, we were close. All right, I'm going to wrap it up for today. I'm actually already 41 minutes over, so just a quick word on programming. I do plan to stream on... No problem, Season. Thank you very much for hanging out. Let me just... So the... I will play... we'll play on Friday. Actually, I'm slightly curious if we look at the... Cool. But yeah, so I will be streaming on Friday. We'll be back to Book of Hours, House of Light. But I did also want to note that I will be out of the country next week for at least Monday. And then Wednesday, even if I'm back, I'm normally going to be at the local game dev meetup. So no expectations for a Wednesday stream no matter what. But I will do my best for the following week, the following Friday. I should be back and streaming. So I realize that will be 2 in a row. Hey, Ionix, thank you very much for hanging out. I think you probably came in Pro's raid. But we'll try and get another Salon done before I head out of the country. Let's see who is online, and then I need to get to sleep. Nobody doing Book of Hours. Nobody doing Cultist Simulator, so we will raid Revived Snow, who's playing the First Descendant. Revived Snow is a fellow Canadian and does a no camera, no mic stream. They do a stream entirely through text-to-speech. Definitely a very friendly streamer, somebody who also streams a bit later in the evening, so it's kind of a safe choice like Selphea. And again, they've been playing a lot of the First Descendant recently, so for those of you that have been interested in that game, you might want to check it out. Well, thank you very much for hanging out, Oswin. I hope I get a chance to catch you streaming this game, mostly because, I don't know, you seem quite excited by it, so I know it's quite confusing, but I'm actually somewhat delighted to check in on your updates. So, anyways, thank you everybody. I'm gonna get some sleep. Well, I'm gonna write, and then I'm gonna get some sleep. But I will see you all in a couple of days. Take care until then.